This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Start to Sunday morning, because here we are chasing an enormous pack of wild dogs through the bushes. And I said to Gerrit, who is on camera today, that it was almost, there they go, that it was almost certain they were going to leave just before we started drive, and so they have. Stations, animals, mobile now. They've killed something here. They've killed, I think, probably a scrub hare. What a start. So they've just eviscerated a scrub hare here, and there are more just around this corner. Let me keep going around here. I'm not sure how long we're going to be able to be with them for. I hope you're all very well. Please remember to talk to us using the hashtag WildEarth on Twitter. You can go to our website, you can use the YouTube chat stream, and you can send us an email to kidsquestions@wildearth.tv. We're on the western fringes of the Greater Kruger National Park. We've been following these wild dogs for the last 20 minutes. And they were lying beautifully in a little puddle of puppies until 10 seconds before we went live. Okay, they've gone back up to the road. Copy, on my way. They're just over here, just there. There we go, straight in front of us. I'll probably have a little drink now to help wash down the scrub hare snack. 3 molecules each that they got. Absolutely mincemeated it. Poor little thing. I think they're eating huge numbers of scrub hares, actually. Listen to them drinking. You can probably just hear one of the guests on the other vehicle now laughing with such joy at seeing these wild dogs. One of them is just having a lie down. I wonder if that's like having a milk bath. Phew. I honestly didn't think we were going to get them at one stage. I'm quite impressed that we did. Not with myself, but just with nature for giving them to us. Oh, it has calmed down. Let me go slightly forward, because then Gerrit can get the rest of them. Yes, so 50. It is amazing how fast they are, but it's also, you know, they look like they're going so fast because obviously the impression of speed is that much greater when you're watching the bush fly past on a camera. But yes, they do. I mean, we followed one across the clearings outside camp this morning, and we were going, I don't know, 40 to 50 kilometers an hour, which is pretty quick. So, as expected, whatever they ate has not satiated them or sated them, and they're now going to seek out some other form of delicious meal. Or meal. Might not be delicious.
Good afternoon. What a start for Juma this morning. Wild dogs and, of course, our resident gorgeous mother and chick here. We have Mrs. Wig, and just to the right of her, you can see the chick. Yes, it's fully out today. How exciting. My name is Lauren, and I have Niels on camera today. And we've just came into the Mulwati, where we found Tandy yesterday, to admire this wonderful, beautiful moment. Now, don't forget to head on over to our website, wildearth.tv, and send in your questions and comments there. It's already extremely hot here. I think we're in store for another melting day, shall we call it, where both the cameraman and the presenter melt into the seats. It's wonderful, really, it's wonderful. (26 degrees Celsius and 78 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, James mentioned yesterday that he thinks the chick is a lot older. I have to say I don't. I really don't. Now, according to the Roberts Bird app that we all use here, it does say the eyes will open after 7 days. But I've been doing a lot of research into the owls, as you know, and you find that between 4 and 7 days, the eyes will start to open. Now, it's obviously sleeping right now. It's still very altricial, still very weak. I've not seen it move yet. Locomotion will be a key. Is it moving its wings? Is it moving its feet? How is it supporting its head? And as you know, I'm doing a sort of diagram day-by-day development. Now, we don't know when it hatched, but everyone's been coming to sort of check each day, and we found broken eggshells and signs of the chick on the 1st of November. So I'm still going to go with a week old, give or take a day or two. We could be out by a day, but I really think that's where we're at with this chick. I think it's nowhere near 2 weeks old, but we could be wrong. We're learning as we go. It's very exciting. Bernie, you're saying it's just so cute. Yes, it's adorable. It's just the most magical thing to be able to follow this. That's where we do learn, rather than just looking at books and textbooks and apps. We're actually learning as we go here. You can all take screenshots day by day and start to compare them, start to learn when it first moves its wings, when it first moves its feet, when it first sort of moves its entire body, when it gets stronger, when this first down comes in, when the second down comes in. We're just learning as we go. But I'm following the development very, very closely, and I'm convinced we're at 7 days old, give or take a day. And you all know I'm producing wonderful sketches. A few of you have asked for those sketches, so I will take some photos and pop them up on my Instagram for you. They're really not the best sketches in the world. If you would like the real thing, it's a book called The Owls of Southern Africa. And Mum will leave. They say that Mum doesn't really leave until 10 days old. But she has to defecate. She will take moments away from this site, even just short moments, to sort of avoid messing up this nest. So she may leave at longer periods at 10 days, but I think before that she also has to leave. She has to move her own body. Can you imagine how stiff and sore you would get there? Defecate, stretch, move those wings, shake those tail feathers. But if any of you watching really are experts on owls or spotted eagle owl development, please do let us know. We found Sedgwick last year at about the 2-week mark, I think, on this very spot. The exact same spots. No mother, we just found a ball of grey fluff.
Righty. They came back to the little water hole. There they all go. There's a great squadron of them, an armada going down the road. And if you happen to be an impala that was caught in their way, well, I suppose you could say that you'd feel quite scared. I'd certainly feel quite scared. Right, as we turn around and follow them, I'll tell you a small story about this morning and how the complacency is something that is dangerous out here. I was on my way to fetch a salty crack for my morning snack in the dark, and I should have had a torch, but I didn't. And a hyena arrived in front of me. It was still dark, and the hyena reacted very differently from the way they normally do. And it stood for a second and took 2 steps towards me. So I shouted very loudly at it and it ran away. But it reminded me that we must never be complacent. And I imagine the feeling that I had there was about 1/100th of what an impala will feel at the sight of this lot coming towards them. Right, they're going straight through here. It can be a little tricky following wild dogs, of course. It's not always the best view when we're moving, but this is how you do it. They're all just sort of trickling through there. If you... relatively clear through here. Now what happens is they trot, and the puppy is running behind, and then one of them will see something, and you'll know that somebody in front has seen something by the speed with which everyone starts to move. They just go, and then they're gone. Actually heading quite close. There's the Hyena Den, right there. They've gone past the Hyena Den. Didn't even give it a second look, and now on their way towards Treehouse Waterhole. Oh, sorry about that. There's one with the collar there. If I'm not mistaken, the one with the collar is one of the beaters, I think. James Richard will confirm that for us shortly. Go to Treehouse Dam, guys, if you can. So they're right, I think they're at the dam now, actually, which is just down through here. Unless they've spotted something else that was going in the opposite direction, in which case they too will have gone in the opposite direction. No, Paul Ziller, wild dogs do not hunt and kill hyenas. They will kill a hyena if they can, but not to eat it, because hyenas and wild dogs don't like each other very much. And indeed, you have a situation where hyenas will follow wild dogs in order to pilfer their kills from them. And in fact, the first wild dog we had this morning had a hyena following it. Oh dear. There are two of those things that cannot be mentioned sitting at the dam here. But I don't see any dogs. I think they went down this way. I think we must cross the wall and they head that way. You're going to look into the rising sun now, everybody. Don't look right, whatever you do.
Our incredible morning here at Ambion Ngala. We've just found that one lioness with her small youngsters, and we haven't seen them for quite a while, but you can see where she's positioned herself, like on top of this little ridge on the bank of the river, just so that there's a nice vantage point. But also I can just imagine where these cubs might have been. There's quite a lot of thick areas here where she could just hide them and eventually bring them back, or call her, them back towards her. So I'm Nikki. I'm going to be your ranger here at Ambion Ngala, and with me on camera we have Owen. So funny enough, we were actually following a leopard into the riverbed, and then we couldn't see the leopard anymore. And as we moved around to see if we can get another glimpse of this leopard, we came across this lioness with her youngsters lying on the bank. Now, we haven't seen the youngsters for quite a while, and it might be because this lioness was with the rest of the pride. You can see this young cub looks a bit skinny, especially around, if you look at the back around the hips. You'll notice he has lost a bit of condition. This looks like the young male. However, being back with mom now, it's so good, because then at least she'll be able to look after him. Because for a while we thought maybe something could have happened to the cubs, but I'm so glad that both of them are still alive. And even though they do look like they've lost a little bit of condition, they are really resilient animals. And especially if mom's going to be with them. So that is the young female, and she's just lying down there. Now, often with lion cubs is they need to conserve as much energy as possible. So even though they can be very playful after full belly, when they haven't been with mom for quite a while, they need to conserve a bit of that energy. But look at that beautiful face, very delicate. Notice the white around the eyes, quite a bit of white, especially that chin under the nose, and then a bit of white between the legs. And look at that long hair in her ear as well. She has a really beautiful face. How's that for a scene? And when you look at that young female and you look at the mom, one can almost see the resemblance, especially with that white. And also the color, you'll notice that the mother is a lot more golden in color in comparison to that young male, who is more of a gray color, darker color, probably like his dad, who has also a bit of a darker coat in comparison to the female. Now there is some movement at the back because the mother's constantly like looking backwards. Zoe, I agree with you. Like lions are one of the best, if not the best. But I think every animal in their own way is so beautiful. I think for me, just the one thing that I enjoy about lions is how majestic they are. And even the way that this lioness is lying down, it just shows so much pride within her. You can see that young male, every time he gets closer to mom, look at how she starts snarling at him, because they are at that stage now where they are weaned from mom's milk. So they rely heavily on mom, hoping to make a kill, or even taking them down to water for a drink. But it might have been that the whole evening she was probably trying to find something to hunt. And wonder what she's seen. For to be sure, apparently when they're born they can't see for a little while. And I'm not too sure, I think it's probably after 2 weeks when they're able to see properly. But when they're born, they're so small, and they're reliant on mom carrying them around, especially if there's like a dense site or like the vegetation behind her. There might have been something in the back that she spotted, maybe like a kudu or impala. But just to get back, so you've noticed the vegetation in the back. So sometimes with particularly lions, when they hide their cubs away in denser areas, the mom will have to keep that area clean, because if she leaves it like them alone to go and hunt, they're very vulnerable to hyenas, possibly other lions, and even if a male leopard would have stumbled across them, or I've even heard about pythons. So she needs to make sure that that area is clean. And then often if there's starting to become quite a present smell, she'll move them from one area to another, or if there's imminent danger in that area. Just that mother instinct of keeping them safe. And who knows, maybe in the next 3 years, this young cub will grow all the way up and look like the mum right next to her. But just look at the two, if you had to compare the two in size, you'll see how much bigger that mum would be. Probably even close to 110 kilograms heavier than this youngster. But who knows, maybe in the next couple of years that little one will grow up and lie down right next to mum. And who knows, even from there, maybe have litter of her own right next to her. So it's a beautiful story, being able to follow them and spend some time with them and see their behavior. But what we might do is from here we could possibly go and see if we can get some other glimpses of that leopard, and eventually come back to her and the youngsters.
Good morning, good morning. It is a beautiful, cool morning here in Tswalu, Kalahari. Guys, we are busy following up on some fresh lion tracks that we just found. We're in an excellent area for the lions. By the way, guys, my name is Moritz. Behind the camera, we've got David. So we've picked up on tracks for one big male, and it looks like 4 female lions. And they cut straight into this open area. So we're just going to see if there's any tracks crossing over any other roads. We've got some blue wildebeest here, looking in all different directions, so I do think the lions are not far away. However, they might also just be looking at the zebras or red hartebeest that we also have on the plains. They are a little bit further away, so we can't see them right now, but we did drive past them now as we were following the tracks. But yeah, excellent area for the lions to try and hunt. So hopefully they did something during the night, or they're busy stalking still. That would be epic if we could see that happening. But yeah, what we are going to do is we are going to follow up on those lions. You can see all the blue wildebeest are now heading out of the plains. Typically, you'll find the plains game sleeping on the plain. Well, not only the plains game, you'll find other things like kudu and so on. Also, spending their evenings on the plain, just to have a nice open view of what's going on around them, with them having that bad eyesight during the evenings. And then during the mornings, as soon as the sun comes out, then they start moving towards something like water and so on. When they can see a little better, they go into the more thicker stuff. So I'm pretty sure that's what these wildebeest are up to. You can see they're walking in a nice straight line. So that means typically that they are set on going to a specific point. They're not just feeding and moving around as they're doing so. But yeah, exciting to find these fresh lion tracks. There's always something about a fresh track, especially a cat track, that makes a guide buzz a little bit longer. So yeah, we're going to see if we can pick up on those tracks and follow them until we find those big boys, guys.
Tandy and cub, everyone. We found Miss Tandy and Ma Ping Pan, as they say in Shangaan. It's a little boy. He's very skittish without his mum around. So we had Tandy yesterday, and he was obviously not too far away. Okay, they've gone out of sight, so we're just going to quickly reposition. I don't want to lose them. They're very mobile. And when it comes to a cub, although mom is here, we don't want to scare him. We don't want to go too close. Tandy's very habituated. We know that. We've spent years with Tandy. But the cub, not so much. That's why you just have to drive a little bit careful. They're playing over here. Okay, just give me 2 seconds and we're going to follow them. We're going to get a view in about 2 seconds. You ready, Niels? Bless you, Tandy. She's sneezing. She was sneezing a lot yesterday as well. Something obviously really irritates. Oh, got some scent marking. Scoosh, scoosh, as we say. Is it not lovely in the morning light? Oh. He's getting so big. Oh, there's a giraffe moving in the distance, watching them. The lighthouses of the bush probably thinking, oh, I don't like leopards. I don't know why I put on that accent. That is not how giraffes talk. Okay, Niels, I'm just going to move to keep up with them. It is raining leopards here in Juma. Okay, they are going to cross soon. I wonder if they will cross into Chitwa or Torchwood. But they're moving in that direction. And you can see the giraffe, Niels. Look at the giraffe just watching them. Now, a leopard couldn't hurt a giraffe, but still, they're aware that they're predators. I think what I'm going to do now is just move, so we're going to lose them for a bit. I want to relocate and get ahead of them. When it comes to cubs, I don't want to follow behind, so we're just going to drive a little bit and get ahead of these animals. So hopefully soon we're going to have some better views of Miss Tandy and cub.
Good morning and welcome to Anbion Private Game Reserve, where we've found a rufous-naped lark that's sitting up on a dead tree, busy calling in the morning light. My name is Damon. Behind the camera this morning is Craig, and it's a lovely, beautiful morning here at Ambion Pinda in Mapuche land. The sun is really intense already, even though it's so early. We're expecting quite a warm day. Luckily, there's a bit of a breeze that's blowing. And this lark has been sitting. No. To make sure that his voice can get heard from as far away as possible. And he changed his tune there a little bit as well. So have a look on the top of his head. Can you see there's almost like a little ridge there? And it's tough to see from here in the light, but that's where he gets his name from, the rufous-snaped lark. It's quite a rufusy colour. Is the back of his neck, and then also that little crest on top of his head. And there's that little wing flutter again. And often with larks, there's quite a few different species that look quite similar to each other, and that's where learning the call of the bird can be very important when it comes to identifying it. But that little crest on top of its head is normally a giveaway that it's a rufous-snaped lark. Of course, the call also unmistakable. And we've even started to see these rufous-snaped larks doing their display flights as of late. But I don't know, we're going to wait for him to do that. I think he might, there we go, take off and head off. So we'll leave him to continue with his morning, and we're going to carry on and see what else we can find for you.
Just going.
Pala are losing their mind, listen. It's a bachelor herd, all males. They're not happy. Okay, before we lose Tandy and Cub, I am going to follow. They're moving through the thicket, and we're on Chitwa now. So I'm just going to keep following. Excuse me, Impala, I know you're very upset. My goodness. I love that about Impala. When they see a predator, boom, they make their presence known, loud, confident. You are not taking me down today. Okay, they're just here, moving through the thicket in Chitwa. I'm just going to drive really slowly. The cub is very skittish. Neos, listen. Yes, I can see them. Here we go. So Dandi and Kuchava's territory both borders on Chitwa. I find Tandy overlaps her territory more with Kuchava than she does with Klalamba these days. Okay, Neos, watch out. We're going to drive into a tree. There we go. We've got them. We've got them. There's no way this cub is Tingana's. No way. It's definitely Mulwati's. It's so nice to see them together. Something's running over there. Something's running away. I don't know what that is. Okay, we're going to follow before we lose them. Having to ninja my way through the spider webs. I've got the move down to a T now. just like that. Yeah, they're moving. We're going to have to navigate our way off-road here to keep up with them, I'm afraid. I'm not going to have visual right now. So they're very, very mobile, but I really, really hope we can keep up with the Queen and the future Prince.
We haven't got very far from where we left that river-snaked lark, and Craig and I have found a relatively large herd of buffalo that are taking it easy, lying down on this ridge line. How's that for a view behind them? That valley and then the mountains in the background. Quite a big herd of buffalo. I think it stretches, we can only see a couple from here, but from where we first spotted them, it looks like the herd even goes down into that valley a little bit, so kind of sprawled out. And see how they're all, or most of them, are lying down. Busy resting after what was probably a good, successful early morning's foraging. Again, just looking at all the greenery all around us, these buffalo would have been grazing through these hillsides, taking in as much grass as they possibly could. Now they've lain down, and they would have chewed the cud, ruminated for a bit, and maybe a little bit later, before it starts to get too hot, they'll get up and start to move down the valley into some shade. They're maybe going to go look for a pool of water down in the valley below in those dry riverbeds that have, after the rains, no doubt filled up somewhat. Looks like there's one buffalo cow off by herself that's starting to feed. She's obviously a bit more hungry than the others. There's a particularly interesting looking cow in among there. Sophelia, you're asking how big a buffalo herd can get. Well, Sophelia, buffalo herds are typically made up of different family units, so often a bull and a couple of cows and their offspring, and then the herd is made up of all of those units coming together. And Sophelia, under the right conditions, there can be several of those herds that come together. So you could have a couple of herds, each numbering 100, that all group together. So you could end up with herds, several hundred. I think the biggest herd I've personally seen was probably about 300, but I've heard of herds of 800 and maybe even more. Of course, in times gone by, those herds could have been even bigger, into the thousands. And it's all dependent on resources. We often find that here at Ambionpinda, during the winter months, and even, I suppose, even in other reserves, I've seen it as well, where in the drier months when food is a bit scarcer, the buffalo herds almost seem to come together into massive super herds, where they, or if you will, where they obviously become a bit more concentrated around resources. The grazing isn't as widespread, and so they've got to kind of focus their efforts on certain areas. But here on Pinda, Sophia, the biggest herd that I've actually counted, where we actually sat and one by one counted each buffalo, was about 120. This herd, like I said, there's quite a few more of them on the other side of this ridge. So I don't think we're getting an idea for just how big this herd is. I see a couple of buffaloes have even laid their heads onto the ground. They're fast asleep, taking advantage of this lovely cool breeze that's blowing. Like I said earlier, the sun is really intense and there isn't a cloud in the sky. Today is going to be an absolute scorcher. And these buffalo will want to get away from this open area a little bit later, go and roll around in the mud, cool themselves. It's interesting now, just in the last couple of minutes, these buffalo actually, there's more and more of them lying down. So I wonder if this is now actually just the end of their feeding that they're coming to now, and they haven't yet started to ruminate. And that will come only a little bit later. But now, as I say that, one of them stands up. Look at that buffalo that's looking at us there. Look at how covered in mud his sides are. Probably from yesterday's mud bath. And then have a look at his horns and how they curl all the way back over his neck, and how he's got that helmet of bone on top of his head. Not a super big boss just yet, and doesn't have those bumps and convolutions that a fully grown bull has just yet, so still quite a young bull. But looking at those horns, he looks like he's going to be a super impressive buffalo bull when he gets older. But there we go. Look at that. There's that buffalo cow that's busy staring at us. Leopard lover, you're asking at what age these horns will start to show. Leopard lover, normally about 3 or 4 months. It's quite noticeable. You can see like little sticks, or well, not sticks, but little, they look like little sticks, I suppose. Little grey spikes coming out of the backs of the calves' heads. I was going to say, look at this buffalo cow that's busy staring at us, and see how she has started to chew. Now, she hasn't bent her head down once since we've been here, so this is now the starting of that rumination, of that chewing of the cud that I told you about. And based on the fact that there's still buffalo lying down, I think most of them haven't started to ruminate just yet. And this way of feeding and of digesting their food, I suppose, helps the buffalo in many ways, in that they're able to, of course, extract more nutrients from their food, but they're also able to spend more time resting, more time conserving energy. They take in a big stomach full of food, and then they go and sit down and chew it all over again. But instead of having to walk around and find more grass, like a similarly sized animal that isn't a ruminant would have to do, instead of doing that, they get to just sit around and rest. Gives them more time to save energy, more time to roll around in the mud. Look at how tightly packed they are. They're all lying right on top of each other. Really nice to see all these buffalo lying all close together like this. But I don't think they're going to be getting up and moving anytime soon. Like I said, later they might move down into the valley in search of some mud or some water. But Craig and I are going to leave them for now.
So have a look at these termite mounds, and you'll see at the very top of them, and even on the sides, you'll see some movement. So that's from a dwarf mongoose. And what they might be doing is early on in the morning, they often come out of their burrows and they sit on the top of the termite mound just to get a bit of sun before they start moving. And often what's quite nice about them is you'll see when they do move, there's a lot of hornbills that often move with them, because as they move and disturb the grass and eventually some of the insects fly up, the hornbills will go and catch it. Look at this one off to the right. It's moving around. One just on top is scanning just to make sure that everything is still safe before they decide to move on. And also just enjoying that sun. What I enjoy about them, they have such an integrated social structure, and they, in comparison to the banded mongoose, which you also find in this area, they're a lot smaller in comparison to them. I can actually hear some hornbills around, and so there are some theories that apparently the hornbills, if they don't come out early in the morning, they will actually go to these mounds where they know the dwarf mongoose would stay, and then they would actually call to wake them up, and then as soon as they wake up and start moving, then of course they'll just be around in the area. Don't know if you can hear, there's a bird calling in the back. It's a pearl-spotted owlet that's sitting in the tree nearby. See, there's a Swainson spurfowl moving in the back. Chantal, I can imagine why you must love a dwarf mongoose. I do too. The thing about them, what's so interesting is, remember earlier we saw that big lion, so they're part of the family of carnivores, so meat-eating animals. And literally the smallest carnivore that we get in Africa is this one here, from the mammals. And now compare the difference in weight, just to give you an idea. So the lion, with that female we saw this morning, would probably be around maybe 145, maybe 150 kilograms. Now these mongoose that we're looking at here, so a fully grown one, so let's say the one that's sitting at the very top there, now looking to the left, that one would not even weigh half a kilogram, so not even 500 grams. Just shows you how small they are. And that mound that they're sitting on, so how their burrows would normally be these old termite mounds that have been abandoned that they'll dig out and then make it at their home. And so mainly in the days when they move out, and later on in the afternoon, early part of the evening, is they'll come back into their holes, and that's where they spend the majority of the night until the next morning. See, this one is venturing off. Of course, not too far away from the others. Tries that they will. They would also eat not just insects, but they'll also, termites, but they'll eat a variety of different insects. They'll, anything from possibly something like a scorpion, to a grasshopper, to a spider, to just anything basically that they're capable of being able to catch and feed on. Beetles. So a variety of things. Look at how these two are grooming each other now. And see the one just grooming behind the back there, just behind the ear, just keeping that very strong social bond. It almost looks like there was a small mongoose that just moved in the back, smaller than the others. Might be a youngster. I've often seen the adults, if there's a small baby, they'll actually pick it up, like hold it in their mouth, and then move it out and put it in the sun, and then from there on, like, they'll move it back into the burrow again. looks like this one might be covered with fleas. You see how he's just scratching his back, like around the front part between his legs. Even on his back leg. See, there's another one moving in the back now. Sugarbit, I'm not sure. Like, I don't know, excuse me, if they would do that though. I can imagine that this is just from what I've seen around, but I'm stand to be corrected on it, and I'm definitely going to read up more about it and hopefully be able to share that on our next drive. But so what I'm thinking is that maybe the mothers will go out and they would feed, and then like produce quite a nutritious milk, and then like come back to the burrow and give it to the youngsters until they are capable of being able to move by themselves. And of course, if they are then with the parents, and the parents do get something, they often can get quite fast and then try and grab, if there's, let's say, a grasshopper in the parent's mouth, they'll try and grab it, and they might just allow them to have it. But from going and catching something and bringing it back to burrow, I don't know if I've seen that before, but I'm definitely going to read up more about it and be able to let everyone know. But also from our viewers, if you had seen that or had an experience with it, we would love to know, and please pop a little comment about it. Because I mean, for us, we learn new things each and every day. See the yawn from the one at the back. Definitely just waking up. Looks like myself and Owen in the morning when we wake up before our first cup of coffee. So 50, I'm not sure the intervals at which they do mate. However, I do know that with them, they don't have a long gestation period. So if they do, let's say if the female is ready to mate and they do mate, it's close to 60 days and then she'll have a young. And often, especially with some of the smaller predators, it won't be too long before she will have her next set. So maybe like after she's fallen pregnant and she's given birth, it will probably take up to a year, maybe a year and a half before she'll fall pregnant again. But it is something that I'll definitely have to do some more research on and have a look. But also the other thing that's quite interesting about them is that with these monkeys, so often the males, so you'll find sometimes that the males, once they get to around about 2, maybe even 3 years old, they'll start moving away from this particular group, and they'll find other groups and then go and join up with them. And that's one of the ways that they do spread their genes, and there's not a lot of inbreeding, that it's just the same individuals within a family and they stay together the whole time. You do find these males will move away. But it is a very interesting carnivore to be able to know more about. I have seen one of a predator to them is a genet. And there was a colony of, or a group of these dwarf monkeys that used to stay in a tree log. And every night a genet used to come and visit the area just to see if there's anyone maybe wandering away from it. So they have to be so careful, especially at night. And it's not just that. I mean, leopards can go for them. There's a chance of eagles, maybe owls, later part in the afternoon or early part of the morning. There's a variety of different things. Snakes, honey badgers. And so they need to be constantly aware of what's going on around them. And I can imagine how intricate that tunnel must be under the ground. So as soon as there's any danger, I can imagine the one at the very back there. And will give this large shriek, and all of them would know there's danger and immediately run into the hole for cover. just so lovely to be able to spend some time with them and just learn more about them and their behavior. But for now, Owen and I will probably carry on and see if we can find any other signs of lion or possibly that leopard.
Welcome back, everybody. You've joined us just in time. There's a rock monitor lizard that is now disappearing into that bush. Oh dear. Well, I hope you got to get a brief glimpse of it there. Yeah, sorry about that. It crossed the road in front of us here and then went through those little thickets of grass there, no doubt looking for little things to eat, things like frogs and maybe even little bird eggs, the ground nesting birds, insects. But it's now well and truly gone into that thicket there. And unfortunately, I don't think we're going to get a chance to look at him again, just because of how nice and warm it is now. The sun's out. Often earlier in the year or during the winter months when it's still pretty cool, those monitor lizards are not very fast moving, very sluggish and slow. But when it's so warm like this, they, of course, being ectothermic and being reliant on the atmosphere, on temperature to kind of allow their metabolisms to get going. When it's nice and warm like this, they move around pretty quickly. So, sorry, I hope you got to get at least a brief glimpse of that rock monitor lizard. But I'm afraid that's all that we're going to get of him. So Craig and I are going to carry on driving. There's been a report of a lioness with her 2 youngsters not far from here. We're going to go see if we can try and get a look at them. Oh, there's a giraffe as well. Look at that. Big giraffe bull. And of course he has to stop directly behind that fallen tree. But he looks like he's staring at something. I can see a family of warthogs off to my left, as well as another female giraffe. They're not very easy to see though, but that might be what he's looking at. But as that giraffe walks off into the distance, we're going to keep on driving and we're going to go see if that lioness and her 2 youngsters are still around.
We just found an impala lamb. This is my 3rd lamb, and I'm not able to get them on camera. Why? Because mother separates herself from the herd, so there's no other impala around, and it's just her alone with her new baby. It's a baby moon, not a honeymoon, a baby moon. And they're normally off in the thicket, but this one was tiny. They're all going to start dropping now. Lamb, 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 lamb. Once that first ewe has a lamb, it's a knock-on effect, and they're all going to continue to drop lambs, flooding the market. It's going to be a feast for the predators, but it's a remarkable strategy for impala to survive and thrive. One of the reasons that they're so successful out here, at least in the low veld. So we had to leave Tandine Cub, I'm afraid. It got very busy, very, very busy. So we've let them be. Hopefully we can maybe return later. And we're searching Torchwood to see what we can find. New territory for me. For those of you that are not sure, Torchwood is a property to the east of Juma. They're right next door to each other. But we never used to be able to traverse there, and now we can. I'm just going to stop and give you all a beautiful view of how thick, lush and green the low veld is now that we've entered into summer.
Alrighty guys, so just an update on the lion tracks. They have been chasing things around and, you know, making it a bit more difficult for us. However, it is quite exciting to see how they have chased, it looks like blue wildebeest initially, and then there's some more tracks of the females coming down this side of the road that was chasing an eland in that direction. However, I don't think they were too successful because here is very fresh tracks for the big boy, the male, going in that direction again. So it's possible. I also see there's an oryx standing way over there, but it's far away, don't worry about it. It's possible that they chased it in here, missed, and then turned around and started walking, and the female tracks are just not on the road yet, possibly walking over there. So yeah, luckily these tracks are looking really, really good, the male ones, and it's always nice to see a big, beautiful male lion. So I'm thinking that when we find him, we'll find the females as well. He looks to be kind of following wherever they're busy hunting. So probably both of them, or both sets, relatively hungry. So I don't think he'll be too far behind. Unless he decided, you know what, you guys are too unsuccessful, I'm going to continue doing my own thing. But highly doubtful. So yeah, sorry guys, I'm just constantly looking around because there might be lions just around the corner. However, these tracks are looking really good. So I do think that we're not far behind them. Just trying to make sense of which direction to be going into. Yeah, it would be great to pick these guys up. So yeah. We're going to continue following these tracks, and as soon as we pick up on something a little bit more interesting, then we'll let you guys know.
Yes, it's always a good idea, I think, to look around when you think there might be lions around. If you don't do that, you might walk into a lion, and that could be very unpleasant. Here is a leopard tortoise. I know we've seen hundreds of them. This one is a particularly afraid leopard tortoise, and he is hiding himself. Oh, there we go, bit of movement. He's now got very angry, and he's heading towards us in order to mete out terrible trauma on the Land Rover. You can see he's not smiling. He's got a very cross face. He was walking along the road, and I think he decided that our presence was not a good idea. And so he's now trying to hide himself. He's not really attacking us, in case anyone thought he was. Although he is walking closer to us. Isn't that lovely? He's going to end up under the car. And then I'm going to have to... In fact, before he does that... Yeah, before he does, let me just move backwards, because what I don't want is for him to end up under the car. There we go. I think I've seen this guy before. You can see that some form of attack. No, it's not him. He's just got a very deep kind of gap between the two scutes on the top of his carapace. That's the shell. Between the three ones on the top there's a big gap. And often on these tortoises you'll find where they were attacked at some stage during their lives, and there's a dent there, healed. But I don't think that is. I think that's just an unusually deep... What would you call it? Join, I suppose. Maybe he was attacked there. But there's definitely a tortoise around here, around about the same size. It's got a proper dent.
Sonogy, come in.
Question from Yeviet. Hello, Yeviet. For those of you who don't know, that means you know. If you don't know, but jy weet means you know. Anyway, there you are. Jy weet, the potential lifespan of this tortoise is probably around 60 or 70 years, although there are definitely records of leopard tortoises living over 100. I think it's quite regional. They don't get a whole lot bigger than this one is now in this part of the world, but in the Eastern Cape they get to at least 3 or 4 times that size. So, yeah, I think it depends on where they are, and probably depends on the food that is available and that sort of thing, but then over 100 years. Again, this is all quite difficult to tell because in the wild, very few tortoises or any other animals, should we try and go back a bit? Very few tortoises or any other animals are actually ever followed from the time that they're born until the time they die, which means a lot of the longevity estimates that you're reading are just that. They're kind of educated guesses. Cool. Well, we'll leave him in the shade and head on and see what else there is.
Welcome back to Ambient Punda. We have had some success with our lion search. A mother lion or lioness and her 2 little cubs. Look at that little cub in the middle. He's got his mother's tail in his mouth. If you were a little cub and your mother flicked her tail around like that, how could you resist grabbing it? They're currently perched up on a raised piece of earth next to quite a prominent waterhole, lying in the shade there. I think it speaks volumes for how intense the sun is and how hot it is already, that these lions are already in the shade. And it's not even, it's only gone 25 to 7 now in the morning. And of course, for this lioness, it's been tough to see if she looks full or not. Marion, you're asking how old these cubs are? Marion, we think they were born in May, so that makes them about 6 months old now. They're still at the stage where they're still very cute and fluffy, but starting to grow into their paws a little bit. Legs starting to get a bit longer in relation to their body size. There you go, mum's up. Let's see, have a look at her tummy, see how full she looks. Doesn't look too full from here. Look at how her shoulders are the widest part of her body from this angle, and her stomach doesn't protrude out kind of beyond or further out than her hips. So she looks like she could do with a meal, and that's what I was going to suggest earlier, is her lying by this water. Because it's a very prominent water source in this area, there'll be lots of different animals that will come down to drink here during the day. And if she just lies in the shade somewhere nearby, preferably somewhere where she's concealed, she might be able to catch something for her and her little ones to eat. Now she's facing us. Have a look at her face. Isn't she beautiful? Have a close look at her nose, everybody. And if you can see the bits of pink on her nose. Not a particularly young lioness, if I'm not mistaken. I think she's about 5 years old. But just interesting that she's still got that quite a bit of pink on her nose there. And also look at her eyes. Those mustard yellow eyes. Very pretty. Look at how alert she is as well. Her head's up, she's looking around. There's some oxpeckers that are calling just from the other side of the waterhole. And of course, oxpeckers being birds that sit on herbivorous animals and pick the ticks off and pick at wounds. They'll sit on things, or I suppose any herbivore, from an impala up to a buffalo or a rhino. And so maybe just her hearing those calls, she might have that association with those oxpeckers and with them often being around herd animals. So just looking in their direction to make sure that there's nothing that she can try to hunt that's on its way down to the water. Because if there is, she'll want to get into position, obviously. And her two cubs looking pretty relaxed. The one on the right completely passed out, flat on its side. And the one in the middle, I don't know how it must be very tired, because there's a tail with a lovely little pom-pom on the end of it that's dangling around in front of its face and smacking it in the face every now and then, and it's not biting. Look at how spotty that cub on the right's legs are. Very prominent spots still visible there. Compared to Mom's legs, have a look at Mom's leg, her back leg that's facing towards us. Can you see those very faint spots still on the inside of her leg there? Oh, she's getting up. No, just repositioning. I think she decided that, better to face that way. That is the direction where the oxpecker's calls are coming from. So just wanting to make sure that she can keep a good lookout there. And of course, aside from her lying in the shade to keep cool, she'll also be a lot less conspicuous lying in the shade. Vade, you're asking if lionesses have strong bonds with their cubs? Absolutely they do. And especially when and that's one of the reasons, I suppose, why a lioness, I don't know if you've heard about how lionesses, what they do when they go to have their cubs. They'll go away from the pride and isolate themselves. And then they'll give birth. And then normally for the first kind of 6 weeks or so, they'll look after those cubs and keep them away from the rest of the pride, before then only later introducing them to the rest of their group. And during that time, they develop a very strong bond with their little ones. And even now, and even later into life, they'll always have a very strong bond. Especially, so with these two cubs, one of them is a male and one of them is a female. And so what will happen was that when these cubs get to kind of independence, when the male is about 2 to 2.5 years old, maybe even a bit older, maybe even a bit younger, who knows, he will be pushed out of this area by the two dominant males, by his father and his uncle. And his sister, though, she'll be able to stay within the pride forever. And so, of course, then her bond with her mother will be very strong. And it will last for as long as they're both a part of the pride. And you often see lion cubs and their mothers rubbing heads, licking each other, right from when they're small like this up until they are adolescent lions. So yes, a very strong bond. That being said, though, you would never say it when it comes to feeding around a carcass. I don't know if you've ever watched, I'm sure you have, watched lions feeding on a carcass and seen how they fight. And mothers will smack cubs and cubs will smack their mothers with their paws, and they'll bite each other and stick their claws into each other, dig their claws into each other's heads, and they look like they're tearing each other apart. But that's just how lions are. Every lion it's every lion for itself, so to speak. Every lion has to fight for its place at the dinner table and fight for its right to feeding on the carcass. Look at that lioness. She's been staring into that bush for quite a while now. I wonder if she can't maybe hear something. Even the cub. Look at the cub. The cub's also looking in the same direction. There's a couple of birds that are hopping around in there. Some emerald-spotted wood doves. I just saw one land on a branch at the back there. But just now she seemed to prick her ears up and look in that direction. It's quite a dense patch of bush there, so I wonder if there's not maybe some kind of thicket-dwelling antelope, maybe like an inyala that's coming through there, maybe wanting to come down and drink. Of course, at this time of year, and especially when we've had rains like we've had in the last couple of weeks, there's surface water dotted all over the place, and so animals won't necessarily have to come down to big water holes to drink like they would in wintertime. Because of course those herbivores will know that the bigger water holes, especially with the winter times fresh in their memory, they'll know that the bigger water holes will of course attract predators like this, who will come and lie in wait to try and ambush a thirsty antelope or a thirsty zebra. But when there's surface water all over the place, much easier and I suppose less risky to go drink out of a puddle than to come to a prominent water point. That being said though, it's been a couple of days of really intense heat and bright sunshine, and so lots of those puddles are drying up and evaporating, so soon the animals are going to have no choice but to come down and drink here. That's maybe what this lioness is waiting for. And look at the cubs, they just lifted their heads. I don't know if you could hear the crested francolin calling. Gemma, you're asking what will happen to young males if they aren't allowed into a pride. Gemma, then they'll probably just have to wander as nomads for the rest of their lives. So, for example, with this young male here, it's going to be quite tough for him, seeing as he's all by himself. And within his pride, there are 3 sub-adult males, but they're quite a bit older than him. They're almost a year older than he is. And so they're going to get pushed out of the pride a lot sooner than he will. And so he'll probably have to go it alone. And that's going to be very tough for him, because one young male, the odds of him being able to challenge for a territory is going to be pretty slim. If the other dominant males in the area are all in coalitions, it's just a simple numbers game. 1 against 2, 1 against 3 is never gonna be in the favor of the single lion. He could have a chance though if he's somehow able to meet up with other nomadic males, and it's not unheard of where a lone nomadic male has joined up with a group of brothers or a group of cousins that have also been pushed away and that are also nomadic at a similar time. And it's not unheard of for them to then form like a bigger coalition where there's a couple of related males and then 1 or 2 or 1 completely unrelated male. So that would be his best chance of being able to one day take over a pride for himself. But as a single male, shame, things are not going to look too good for him. But not impossible. There's another pride of lions that lives, it's the pride of lions that neighbors this pride's territory to the north. And they have at least 2 male cubs that are only a few months older than these cubs. And so when they get pushed away by their fathers, or by their father and their uncle, who happen to be the same dominant males that preside over this pride, then I suppose there's a chance he could try and join forces with them and then form a coalition of 3, and my goodness, that would be a force to be reckoned with. And that cub looks like he's finally given in. He looks like he's starting to chew on Mom's tail. And now putting its foot on its sibling. Looks terribly comfy there in the shade. But I wonder how long that shade will last. The sun is rapidly climbing in the sky, and soon that shade is going to get smaller and smaller, and they're going to be forced eventually to go find some new shade. There you go, just as I said that, there goes Mum. Maybe you're going to stretch a little bit and head down the hill. Let's just see what happens here. I just want to watch her carefully, because she's been staring for a while now into that thicket. So it might be that she hasn't shown any signs of stalking just yet, but it might be that she's going to investigate whatever she heard or saw. And I mean, if the cubs are here, we might as well sit and watch the cubs for a bit. Mum's going down the road, still with her ears pricked forward. I don't know if you can see her there. She's stopped again, looking back at her cubs. And look at how the cubs know to stay put. they know that in this kind of situation that they'll be a bit of more of a hindrance than a help in a hunt. Jada, you're asking if lions purr. Jada, they make like a growling sound that is, I suppose, quite similar to purring, but it's not the same. Oh, shame. That lioness just chased a bunch of francolins out of the bush. But Jada, as far as I've read, it's not quite the same movements as a domestic house cat makes when it purrs in terms of movements of the voice box, or the same kind of motions made with the voice box and the vocal cords. Lions have quite a different voice box, if you will, to a domestic house cat, where a lion has got what's called an elastic hyoid apparatus that allows them to roar. Domestic cats have got an ossified hyoid apparatus, so an inflexible one, and that allows them to purr, and that's why they can't roar. Their voice box is a bit more similar to a cheetah. Okay, these lions now the cubs have also gone, so I wonder if it's not maybe mom just trying to move them to better shade. Craig and I are going to see if we can try and catch up with them.
So talking about the lions that Damon has, so just to show you what we've found again, so we came back to that lioness with the youngsters, and she's decided to take them as well, maybe to go find a cooler area to go and lie down. And you can see the way like mom's moving, she's moving at quite a steadily pace. Probably just, as we mentioned, take them to some water or maybe a patch of shade. She's moving very, very quickly with them. You can see, and for them, they just need to keep up with her, because she's left them for quite a while, and now she probably might even take them to go join up with the rest of the pride again. Okay, we might just get another glimpse. She's just moving behind or through that bush. See, she's moving quite a steadily pace. Now and again, she'll turn around to see where they are, and there they are. And being such a warm day, it might just be that she'll take them until they get to, as we mentioned, either water or maybe some shade. See, this one doesn't want to fall behind again. They're like, okay, mom left us alone for too long, so we want to keep up with her. For now, maybe let's see if we can maneuver around to see if we can get another glimpse. But it's incredible just to be able to follow her like this, and just also those young cubs, because we haven't seen them for quite a while. Now what we want to do, because there's quite a bit of vegetation on this side, dense vegetation, we're going to go all the way around and hopefully get another glimpse of them. So just bear as we move around. We also, because they are moving quite steadily, we don't want to get too close to these youngsters. Give them a bit of space so we don't affect their behavior. So I saw her moving now, somewhere off to our right. Now there is a pan system coming up here. Maybe that's where she's taking the youngsters. There is some water, so I'm just going to find a space for us here to stop. Hold on. And then, as we said, hopefully she comes down, takes them for a drink. Okay, let me move over here and then we'll stop. Owen, is this all right? All right, so we're just going to stop here. As I said, I'm hoping she brings them down for some water. can just hear how they're gulping away. Just look at how thirsty Mum is, but also those young cubs. Daniel, they can go a couple of days, like up to at least 3, possibly even 4 days without having water. But it depends on the heat. I mean, in the heat that we are experiencing now, especially those young cubs, they have to be so careful. Because today even they estimate it to be 40 degrees Celsius. Now, if they say it's 40 degrees Celsius, then we know it will probably be more than that. So if these cubs are lying down, especially in the sun or there's not a lot of shade around, they have to be so careful because then it might not even be 3 days. It all depends on like how warm it is, the time of the year. Probably on average 3, maybe 4 days without having a drink. Or because also they might get some of the moisture from something that they do eat. But mainly if they didn't have any sort of moisture that they take in, I don't know if they'll be able to last longer than that. But they've grown so much. Imagine, like from the first time we started with showing some of the trials here at Ambient Ngala, they were so small. Mom still had to carry them, and now already they're managing to keep up with Mom. I think it's just because of the size. Also, like the family that they are grouped into. So if you think about, let's say, something as small as a serval or maybe an African wildcat, it is quite a lot smaller. They purr and they don't have that ability to roar like we can see with leopards and lions. And because of how big they are and of course of their size, that's why they refer to as cubs and not kittens. Well, that's my little theory about it. It's the same as if you look at some of the antelope where you get a ram and a ewe. The ram and the ewe is something that is quite a bit smaller, but the bull and the cow is a lot bigger. It's just what they use to differentiate between the bigger cats and the smaller cats. Right, we're going to try and maneuver around. Hopefully we can get another view of them. It looks like they are on their way back to the river. So the river meanders around. So it goes basically from where we first saw them. They've moved all the way around and they might just cross it again. Maybe what the mother wanted to do, because there wasn't a lot of water in the river, only places is where the elephants have dug. But then, of course, the cubs can't necessarily get to that. So she's probably brought them here. She had a good drink as well, and now they're heading back towards the river. But it's also the direction where the tracks of the prides were last seen. So maybe her plan was to go and fetch them and now take them back to join up with the pride.
The Jabberwock here, just there.
But incredible morning, and for me it's just such a treat to be able to follow lions. I think they might have gone into the river, because if I look at the area in front of me, I can see it does look like it slopes down, so she's probably gone into the river. What we'll do is once we get to, there is a road on this side. Once we get there, we're going to follow it, and there is a crossing to get into the river, be able to see them again. But let's give it a go. Just want to see here. Yeah, so basically she's just gone, just to show everyone, all our viewers, where she's gone in. Now if you look through the tree line, you see the sand in the back. I don't know if you're able to see her from here, but if we maneuver slightly forward, there's a chance we could possibly see the movement in the back. But the best would be, let's try and get to that river. It's going to be a bit of a drive, so hold on. Because in order to see her again, we've got to risk it for that biscuit. So let's go around. We'll keep a good steady pace as we go. So just to give you an idea, we are now driving on the western side of the riverbank. And once we get down into the river, we're going to drive north. So basically do this and hopefully get to see them again.
We've got a crested francolin here, which in and of itself is not a particularly astounding thing to have found. But what it's doing is having a bit of a contretemps, if you like, with another crested francolin. Or they were. They were jumping up and flapping at each other. And now they're pretending that they don't care about each other and they're just going to eat. There's the other one. Here we can come on, go, have a fight. Let's all chant like we used to at school. Fight, 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 fight. No. The aggressors have decided that their fight is private. It is not something they wish to broadcast to the world, which I suppose, for the good of the species is probably wise. You don't want people going around the world saying that crested francolins are a bunch of violent barbarians. Lovely sounds of the mid-morning already, despite the fact that it is barely 7 o'clock. Oh, here we go. It's being followed into the bush there. Hang on. Now they'll have a fight behind the bush. Here we go. If you go forward slightly. Oh, they are painful. I can see them. There we go. Right, fight. Come on. Fight. Fight. Now, what distinguishes these things from the spur fowl, which used to be called francolin, is the absence of a long spur. Jeremiah, it looks superficially like a quail, but it is much, much bigger than a quail in this part of the world. The Currican button quails and common quails and harlequin quails that we get over here are about a fifth the size of these francolins. And they tend to have even shorter legs. Poor little things. Well, that is our crested francolin sighting. I believe it to be now a thing of the past. Now we will carry on. In case you're wondering, the wild dogs have just been refound, so people have been looking the whole time. They did end up at the dam, and they're now asleep over there. So we haven't had any more entertainment with them than you had. We'll probably head off towards, I guess we'll do a sort of waterhole search for now, because that is going to be our best bet of finding animals as the blazing heat starts to take hold of the Lowveld this morning.
Everyone out for the doctor.
There's also a flower that I quite desperately want to show you that I found. It's all over the place and I'm not entirely sure what it is. Naturally, it's not all over the place.
Alrighty guys, so we're still following these lion tracks. They have been moving around quite a bit. We saw them chasing, well, the tracks where they chased another animal once again, but it seems like they are slowly starting to head more towards a waterhole. So hopefully soon we'll pick up on the lions themselves. Luckily we've got all these nice vantage points where we can sit and, you know, once we see the tracks going over a certain vantage point, we can quickly scan the area like this and see if there is any movement. The biggest, thing that we're using at the moment is their tracks, however, because, no matter how flat he lies in the grass, it's still there where he was walking. We'll be able to see the direction that he was heading in. They can't really hide that from us. So hopefully soon we'll track them down. But yeah, just all in all, this is one of my favorite viewpoints in the Kalahari. Just stunning out here. Beautiful, beautiful area. I love all the mountains, and then it just opens up into this stunning valley. So beautiful. And yeah, I'm not seeing any movement at the moment down here, so I do think what we'll do is we'll carry on following. We just there at the back we found their tracks again crossing over towards the south, so we're going to continue following these tracks and see if we can't pick up on those lions. Okay. Yeah.
So I really hope he's able to find those lions. I just want to stop like this and just show you where this lioness with her youngsters are moving into. Notice it's a really dense area. You can just see the movement at the back. But what we're going to do, there's a game trail that we are going to hug here. And I know the area here in front. There's an open section where she'll eventually come out. So we don't want to bundu bash behind her. We want to give her and the youngsters some space. So we're going to take this game trail and loop around and see if we can get another view of them. So we're just going to slowly go. I'm trying to look out for any bit of movement. They do contrast quite a bit with this greenery. So let's just keep a good lookout as we slowly carry on. Thought I saw some movement there. Okay, so we're just going to go through here. And as soon as we can find a gap to go into the left here, we're going to try and see if we can get another glimpse. Okay, so there's an opening here for us. Just want to have a look. So somewhere in front here it is going to open up for us. Oh, I can see them right through here. Okay. There is going to be a gap. Hold on. No, they've decided to go into a lot denser area than I expected. But as I mentioned, there is an open area on this side. So if we don't get a view now, like Owen and I would just go around on this side and see. Hopefully they'll come out in that open area. Okay, I'm just going to slowly maneuver in between here. Owen, you just watch out, lean into the middle. Lean that out of the way. Okay, we'll just slowly go through. Well done. Owen is our branch manager at the moment. Because it is getting a lot denser from here, what we most likely are going to do is we'll make our way back. There is another game trail on this side, loop around and eventually see if we can get to the front or like just ahead of them and see if they come out in that open area, because there's no use for us. It's getting thicker and thicker, so there's no use for us to try and push through this to try and see if we can get another view. All right, but let me just have a look here. As you can see, there's a very interesting spider web. It's from a communal web spider. And you can actually see there's a few of them up at the very top there. Now, there's quite a few spiders in there. Could be all like up to maybe 100, even more. And they have these little hair-like bristles on their legs, called setae. So what they do is they sit in that nest and they put their feet against the spider webs. So as soon as something flies into it, they pick up that vibration. So as soon as it like starts moving in it, they're able, from those little hairs on their feet, they're able to know exactly where the insect is, how far it is, and how quickly they need, and what's going to be the shortest route to get there. And that's how they're going to go and catch it. But really nice and interesting. But for now, we're going to just find a little space to turn around and then start heading back to see if we can loop around.
We've just stopped on the road to admire the roadside flowers. Now, these white ones are very common out here. The string of stars, because they quite literally look like a string of stars. Helitropium Startneri. And why I mention that is because every Latin name in the botanical world and the animal kingdom has a meaning. And helitropium in Latin actually means to turn to the sun. So if you sort of look at the rows of little flowers, if you like, they all turn upwards to the sun. And of course, most organic material, or at least any vegetation, requires the sun for photosynthesis, and you can see that they all turn upwards. There's a bend and there's normally 2 rows of stars. Now, it's a perennial herb, and not right now, but believe it or not, the scent that comes off these flowers is absolutely incredible. It's one of my favorite smells out here. I have many, but sometimes the strings of stars will release this almost sickly sweet honey smell mixed in with a little bit of dampness. I'm not sure if you can imagine that, but that's what it smells like. And when you're driving by, it's one of the most wonderful smells to fill your nostrils. It's a very delicate little flower. And here, the orange one, I think Lion's Mane and Roadside Pimpernel look very, very similar. Now, the Roadside Pimpernel normally has 5 petals. Now, this one that we're looking at looks like 4, but if we can just look at the others just in front of the strings of stars, Niels, you'll see that they actually do have 5. And therefore, it's definitely the Roadside Pimpernel. Yes, in the shadow of the car. But the other one looked like it had 4, which would make you think it's a lion's eye. Not lion's mane, sorry, that's a mushroom. That's a mushroom that I take. It apparently reduces anxiety. Lion's eye, my apologies. They're very, very easy to get mixed up. Same coloration with a bit yellow in the middle. But this is a Roadside Pimpernel mixed in with strings of stars. Now I need to find my butterfly of the day. I'm trying to add 1 per drive, or more than 1 if I can find one. But of course, they should be flying and fluttering and very busy about their morning because it's hot. It's enough heat now to warm up their muscles as they are cold-blooded. But I don't see any. I'm already at number 4. We're just going to keep adding and adding to this list of butterflies. Some very unhappy birds around. It's a roller. Lilac-breasted roller in the distance there is very unhappy. Niels, let's move ahead and see if we can find some butterflies. They should just settle. They're nectar drinkers, of course. So now that the flowers have came into full bloom, the butterflies are in full bloom. And how it normally works is they all have different life cycles. So they all sort of lay their eggs at different stages, which means you will normally see a fluctuation in the species that we see. For example, at the start of summer, you might see lots and lots of blues, many, many blues. But then they will die, their life cycle is over, and then another sort of butterfly will come into full swing. So you see complete fluctuations throughout the entire season of summer. Ah, I do see one. It's very busy though, Niels. I'm not sure it's going to settle. You see this orange one here? Looks like a joker, but it's very, very small. At about 2:30 o'clock, I'll direct you. Oh, it's now moved. No, it's flown away, I'm afraid. We will get one. This is a wonderful thing about identifying butterflies. Patience. Got to put your patience pants on. FC, can I just check you're still there? We're having wonderful problems with all sorts of radios this morning. Okay, they're still there. I haven't lost them just yet. We have another flower for you. Let's see if I can position myself here, Niels, for you. Okay, I think you should be able to get it from here. This beautiful yellow one. You see this? Hibiscus. You can also call it the wild stock rose. It's got different names. But it's the most gorgeous pale yellow lemony colour. And you can see that contrast with the dark maroon in the middle. You just go a little bit closer, you'll see that really deep maroon. You would never think that those colours would complement each other, and yet they do. Isn't it beautiful? Hibiscus flower. Also another plant out here that smells delicious when you get very, very close to it. And believe it or not, the hibiscus flower that we're looking at is the larval host plant for many hawk moths. Now, when it comes to both moths and butterflies in the order Lepidoptera, they're very specific with their host plant. The females don't just lay eggs on any plant. Each species has a specific host plant. Now, some species can use the same plant, but this is the plant that they need to make sure they lay their eggs on. So when the eggs hatch into little caterpillars, the food for the caterpillar is already there. This tiny little skinny, minute little caterpillar can start eating straight away on the correct plant. Because the aim of being a caterpillar, the most important thing of that pupal stage, is to get bigger and stronger, to become a big fat caterpillar. So you won't find butterflies just laying eggs on any plants. No, they're very, very specific. And the hibiscus is normally the larval host plant for many different types of beautiful hawk moths. Okay, we're going to keep bumbling and hopefully we're going to get you a butterfly.
The Ola Flats, and I'm going to go on up towards Hyena Den.
And just enjoy the view. And believe me, here in Tswalu Kalahari, the view is constantly stunning. So it's difficult to sometimes stop and admire it because no matter where you go and no matter where you look, it is beautiful. This area particularly is my favorite. I really enjoy coming to do sundowners or, morning coffee stops or things like that. At the moment, we are actually busy following up on lion tracks, and we're just busy scanning this incredibly beautiful open area to see, because the lion tracks are going in that direction, to see if they're not around. But yeah, just stunning, waking up in the morning and having this view, and also being able to listen to all the birds and just the bush waking up. It's quite a privilege. There's some general game in the distance and everything, so yeah, but these mountains are what makes things stunning. Called the Coronaberg Mountains, almost indigenous to Tswalu. We have, I want to say, 95% of the mountain range on the reserve itself. And it just adds to the scenery, So yeah, just beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Lovely, lovely morning.
Back to Ambion Pinda. It seems like we've had the worst luck today, where as soon as you join us, the animals that we're trying to film just disappear. So we had just come back to that herd of buffalo, And literally just as you came to us, the last one disappeared over that ridge, following the rest of the herd down into the valley below. And just like we said, the sun has risen up a little bit, the sun's climbed up in the sky. Those buffalo have finished up with their resting. It's been about an hour since we saw them earlier. And yeah, heading down that valley into the drainage, or the ravine on the other side there, off to go look for some water and some mud to lie in. We could just see a couple of fork-tailed drongos that were flitting around as the buffalo moved off, busy catching the insects as the buffalo walked through the long grass and disturbed the little insects. But yeah, now that seems to be it for them. They've all headed out of sight. We unfortunately couldn't spend any more time with that lioness. She moved into a very dense Tamboti thicket with her 2 cubs, and lots of really cool places for them to lie in. Tamboti woodlands often, especially when they're more mature woodlands, because of their kind of chemical effects on the soil, their chemicals that they produce, that then go into the soil and often inhibit the growth of other plants, often make really good places for lions to rest, because they often tend to be sandy or just kind of bare, so no grass to tickle the lions or for ticks to sit in. And so lions, and especially lionesses with cubs, often go and lie in those Tamboti thickets to keep nice and cool. That's where we left her, and we saw lots of lion tracks around there, so it seems like she's been keeping those cubs in that area for quite some time. But yeah, so we've had to move out of the area, obviously, and I think Craig and I are now going to continue heading back towards the mountains. We're going to go past a couple of the mud wallows, a couple of the water holes, to see if maybe there's a rhino that's coming down to roll in the mud or drink water, and hopefully we can find one. It'll be quite nice to get to see one actually rolling in the mud, because we've seen yesterday morning, yesterday afternoon, we saw rhinos that are either just finished rolling in the mud or were on their way to mud wallows. We didn't get to show you them actually rolling around in the mud, and it's really, really funny to watch sometimes. Like I was saying yesterday, they'll sometimes roll onto their backs and then wiggle around with their little legs kicking in the air. It can be very funny to watch. I can't believe how hot the sun is today, everybody. I know if I was a rhino, I would definitely be going somewhere to get myself covered in some mud or to roll around in a cool pool of water. Anything to beat the heat. JP, you're asking which animals like to bath in the mud or like to roll around in the mud. Well, JP, animals like those buffalo that we've tried to show you now, they quite enjoy mud wallowing, as do both black and white rhino. Warthogs do it quite frequently, and elephants, of course. Elephants will do it often slightly differently, though, to how the other animals do it. Other animals will roll around in the mud. Elephants will roll around as well, but they'll of course use those trunks of theirs too to kind of splash the mud over themselves and slap it under their bellies, behind their ears. Those are the animals that immediately come to mind. Not cheetahs that end up doing it. Okay, but Craig and I, like I said, we're going to go check towards some waterholes, see if there's any sign of any rhinos.
Hello, we're actually just sitting in one of the pans. Oh, we're rolling, Niels, we're rolling. Looking for a dragonfly. Let me go forward because I just rolled backwards there. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened at the other feet, but you're back with us. Now just give us a minute. This is the pan that we normally come to, and we find a lot of dragonflies. And the weavers have not yet returned. Every day I check for the weavers and no one has returned. There's not that much water, but slowly but surely, once those weavers return, it will be absolute mayhem here. I don't think I'm going to get lucky with the dragonflies, though. I'm giving Niels lots of challenges today. And why we're not able to really get some butterflies and dragonflies on camera right now is because it is morning and they've just started to get active. By afternoon, by 3 o'clock, it's incredibly hot by the time we head out on afternoon safari, they'll be resting. They'll also be extremely hot. They have their own cooling mechanisms. But right now they've just got active. And that's why they're not stopping. Everybody's busy. I don't think we're going to get lucky with one, Niels. I think we should continue to bumble on. Now, the water holes, that's where everyone's checking these days. It really, with these temperatures, everybody's going to be thirsty. From your antelope to your birds needing to cool down to your predators. We had Tandy drinking up here just yesterday. Elephants, buffalo, warthogs, even hyenas. Hyenas love a good mud bath. So let us go on Dam's Wall and see if anybody's here. The usual residents are. We have 2 Egyptian geese. The usual suspects at the dam. No chicks, though. At Simbambili the other day, they had 9 chicks, so the next time we go back across west, we'll need to keep our eye on them. There's a nice breeze coming through. Are you enjoying the breeze, Niels? That's a big thumbs up from Niels. Now, many of you who have followed us know that last year we received so much water. The rain didn't stop. There was actually a concern at one point that some dams would overflow and burst. Luckily, that didn't happen. But we really were blessed with the rains last year. I'm not sure what's going to be in store this year. It's been pretty dry so far. Yes, we've had rain, but really not that much. But luckily, all the dams are still full. Lots of pans are full. Nothing really emptied this winter. Not compared to the winter when I first started and there was no water anywhere. While I would imagine so, it's very difficult to tell the difference between the sexes with Egyptian geese, but they are said to be monogamous. And it goes back to that social monogamy or genetic monogamy, I know, but normally you do find that the male and female stick together. Now, there's a slight difference in size, as with most birds. It's just not always obvious. The male is said to be larger with a much thicker neck. So if you see the 2 of them, the one on the right, you see that? The neck looks much thicker, whereas the females are said to be smaller in size, which is difficult to tell, but a much slimmer neck. And the males also have a slightly different call. So I would guess that the one on the right here, the one at the back, is the male. The one at the front is the female. But it's very, very difficult to tell. They are alike. Now, the male's call is said to be more like a hiss, more of a hissing sound, and it's very, very loud. Whereas the female gives a sort of more coarser. It's not, rather than a sort of high-pitched hiss, it's a much more coarser call. And it's described as sort of a purr, 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 honking sound. Yes, that's the description. So I think this is a monogamous pair. But in general, they're both extremely vocal. They're very vocal birds. Now, I believe the dogs that James had this morning have actually settled at Treehouse Dam. So I'm just going to find out where Mr. Henry is himself. And one of us will make our way there. They've probably hunted, they're probably full, and it's already too hot. So for dogs, they're very crepuscular, which means they're active at dawn and dusk. And they do sleep a lot at night time and throughout the day. So I'll get on that radio very soon, and one of us will make our way back to the dogs. Okay, so I think I am going to make my way towards Treehouse Dam. If the dogs are there, one of us will need to go and see them. The wind is picking up. I think we'll leave these little goosies to be. To get on that radio though, call myself in. As many of you know, we have etiquette out here. We have a radio. Strict protocol regarding sightings and behaviour. I think that was Harold. I hope I got that name. You're asking about the water holes of Juma. Now there's lots of small... there he is, the agama. I was looking for you yesterday, mister. This is a jackalberry that is always on. The blue tree agama. It's a male, definitely. Looking at the coloration of that head, there is no disputing it. I'll quickly run through the water holes. So we have Buffelshoek Dam in our northeast corner. Then as you come south, we have Twin Dams, which is where I am right now. To the west of that, we have Treehouse Dam. And then sort of in the centre, we have Gowrie Dam. Now, they're the main areas. We also have Gallagher Pan, which is a pumped pan. And during winter, especially, in times of drought, the pumped pan will provide water for many of the different species out here. But there's lots and lots of little pans in between, Chela Pan, Gory Pan. But they're not sort of water bodies. They're just small areas. Look at this. Isn't he magnificent? He's always here. If you look closely enough, you'll always find this male. This beautiful jackalberry, that's his territory. Imagine an entire tree being your territory. And reptiles thrive in summer. It's warm, it's moist, there's water. The ambient temperatures are so hot that your muscles are completely solar powered. He's beautiful. Glitter freak? I don't know if that is your name, but I like it anyway. Yes, such a striking blue. And it's from chromatophores, these specialized sort of cells in the skin that contain pigment. Now, the pigment's in a special sac, and there's different types. So it's exactly the same as most animals in the animal kingdom, even octopus, squids, the way that they change colour, it's the exact same, from the same sort of specialised skin cells. And I've mentioned this before, but the main types of chromatophores that you do get are xanthophores, and they contain your yellow and reds. Mix them together and you get orange. It's like being back at school. Iridophores, and these are sort of the cells that contain lots and lots of colourless stacks of crystals, if you like, and they reflect light, which either gives that iridescent sheen that you see on some animals, or blues. So I imagine this guy's head has a lot of these chromatophores. And then there's melanophores, and that's the one that contains your black pigment, melanin. All of these colours can mix together to create a wonderful array of, like a palette of colours. Now, it's normally in ectotherms, terrestrial ectotherms, especially reptiles that have these chromatophores, and they're surrounded by nerve and muscle cells. So the release of pigment within inside a chromatophore is released through a muscular contraction. Now, it's connected to nerves because some species, like your octopuses, like your squids, any cephalopods, their colour changes through neural control. So it's sort of like a quick fire in the neurons in the brain. Within a fraction of a second, not even 1 second, is quicker than that, that will change colour. Not only colour, but the hue, and it can change the texture in octopus. It's very, very fast, and that's why most chromatophores are connected to nerve cells. Hello. But not you, not this one. Just like chameleons, the colour change is through hormonal control, so it's connected to a blood supply. So once that hormone's been released into the bloodstream, it's got to travel all the way around the body to reach that chromatophore cell before the colour is changed. So it's slow. Now remember, pigment, colour, can reflect light differently. So when we look at sort of starlings, for example, we see this gorgeous greeny blue hue and shimmery shine. It's beautiful. It's actually just black. It's all to do with the reflection of light. I don't know the answer to that question, but I would imagine not. And the reason I say I don't know is because, well, let's just look at the Tiger King documentary on Netflix. People do keep crazy animals as pets. They try to domesticate everything. So I am sure someone somewhere has tried, but I don't believe these animals should or could be kept as pets. Why? Because they are arboreal. So unless you've got a ginormous jackalberry growing in your living room, which I doubt many people have, then I don't think they would be easy to keep. I mean, maybe you could have a large tank, and as long as you keep them warm, you use those sort of red infrared lights with reptiles, and you control the temperature of the tank, then possibly. Very, very possibly. But you would need to supply them, as I mentioned, with the right temperature, the right conditions. You need to have a lot of sort of vegetation and have a tree and enough food. So it's a possibility that you could, in answer to the question, but you definitely shouldn't. So I think we are going to see if we can bumble on to those dogs.
You're back with us here at Ambion Punda Private Game Reserve, and Craig and I have come to not a prominent waterhole, but a waterhole that seems to have attracted a lot of life. We saw from a distance this herd of wildebeest, and how they'd all gathered around this little mud wallow. And when we got a little bit closer, we saw the 2 giraffes as well, that were initially just standing in the shade, but it looks like now they might even go down and drink. Let's watch. See how that giraffe has spread its front legs and bent down? Busy drinking. And watch when it lifts its neck, how it shakes its head, and it'll form like a bit of an S with the water. So get ready for your screenshots. Yo, drinking for a long time. Ooh, it's getting suspenseful now. Get ready. There we go. Did you see that little shake? And I suppose if you've got the capability on your device and go back and watch that in slow motion, you'll see that little S that the giraffe forms as it shakes its head once it finishes drinking. Just tilting that chin forward, getting that water to shoot down, flow down its throat. Amazing how long it drank for though. Jeez, normally, I'm sure many of you have watched giraffes drinking before. They're very often very nervous around water when they drink. Just imagine for them bringing their head that close down to the ground for any amount of time. I mean, if they were to be surprised by a predator like that lioness we saw earlier, if she was able to get a hold of that giraffe's neck, it would be over for the giraffe. It wouldn't be able to get away. But I think because of how open it is here, and also because I think these giraffes may have been standing here for quite some time already in the shade, I think they've already had a good look around them, made sure that there's no danger in the area. Here come the wildebeest. Quite a big group of them. A whole bunch of wildebeest cows and their offspring from last year. None of them yet having given birth just yet. A couple of the females looking quite round, quite heavily pregnant, but we won't be expecting those. Ooh, a bit of tension there between some of the wildebeest cows. We won't be expecting any wildebeest calves at least for another month, maybe even month and a half. Looks like there's one big bull in amongst them as well. Probably, well, no doubt the territorial bull from this area. And we've seen in the last 2 drives, territorial wildebeest bulls standing by themselves. We've been discussing how, at least the last 2 we saw, how the last 2 had pretty good territories in terms of the availability of resources, food and water. This one's got the same, and now he's even got a herd of females in his territory. Shame, look at how they've all gone and stood in the shade now. I'm wondering if I don't know if they've drank already or if they're waiting their turn to drink. Maybe a little bit. I don't think that they would have any reason to be deterred by the giraffe being there. And there's one even lying down in the shade. I think it's purely just trying to get out of this heat. I think today we're going to see a lot of animals standing in the shade. Craig and I were just remarking how we can't believe that it's still this early in the morning and the sun is this hot. It's going to be an oppressively hot day. A good day for the swimming pool, if you've got one. Dr. Rocky Balboa, you're asking if a giraffe can swim well. Dr. Rocky Balboa, I can't say I've ever seen a giraffe swimming or ever even heard of a giraffe swimming. I imagine they would be able to swim to a certain extent, but then on the other hand, I've also heard of giraffes that have become trapped on islands where there's been a flood down a river and the giraffe has taken shelter on a little island in the middle of the raging river and then been reluctant to leave to the extent that it actually died. But Dr. Rocky Balboa, I don't think that, with them being so tall, I don't think swimming is something that they have to do very often. Normally those long legs, more than enough length and height for them to be able to walk through a body of water. Of course, they normally wouldn't have any need to cross something like a lake or anything, but if they did have to cross a river to get from one pasture to another, I'm sure that they'd be able to, well, most rivers they'll definitely be able to walk through. And of course, if the water's flowing too fast, like in this instance that I just discussed, then they'd rather just wait it out. It must have been terrifying though. Shame, that poor giraffe, stranded on an island in the middle of a raging river, not being able to go anywhere. So yeah, I don't think something that giraffes have to do very often. I'm just thinking about, I've seen impalas swimming before and bushbuck swimming before, and I suppose a very similar body design to these giraffe, also with their long legs, long necks, and hooves. You know, both impala and bushbuck will typically swim with their chin on the water, on the surface, breathing, and then they'll kind of doggy paddle along almost. I'm trying to imagine a giraffe doing the same. I think it would be quite difficult because of that very long neck. Well, I suppose proportionately, an impala's got a pretty long neck too. That's a very interesting thought, Dr. Rocky Balboa. We're going to have to go have a look and see if we can find any photographs or records of that. These two young male giraffes. See that small one at the back and how it's butting into the rear end of the slightly bigger one? It's like it's inviting a game. Or trying to mock mount the slightly bigger male. And that's behavior that we do see pretty often with young male giraffes, where they'll play fight, and then it also often ends up with one trying to mount the other. I suppose trying to dominate. There we go. There's the little bit of play fighting that's starting, a little invitation. Him swinging his neck and bumping him with his horns. And for any of you that were watching yesterday morning, you may remember we saw that male giraffe courting that female. Looks like he's doing a similar thing here. Leopard Lover, you're asking if there's any man-made waterholes here at Ambionpinda. Leopard Lover, because here on the reserve, we don't have any permanent rivers that flow through the reserve. So in order for there to be water year-round, we do have to dam up some of the kind of the ravines or drainage lines where water would naturally flow. So yes, if we didn't, there wouldn't be any water for the animals. And I think to answer your question effectively, I'm going to show you a map of the reserve. So have a look here. Here's obviously a map of Ambionpinda Private Game Reserve. We're currently kind of down here in these open plains over here. And if you look, like I said, there's no permanent rivers that flow through. There's a river that flows through here, and then another river that flows here, that flows into Lake St. Lucia. But this river, at least this part here, very seldom has water in it, normally only after a very big, heavy rain, and then the water normally drains down into Lake St. Lucia pretty quickly. Down here, though, along the Mzinen River, we do have, most of the time there is water that's normally a permanent water source. But that's only in this one little part of the reserve where animals can actually reach it. And so for the whole rest of the reserve, there have to be water points. Otherwise, animals wouldn't be able to get any water. And they'd all spend all of their time down here, and this area would get very severely overgrazed and overutilized. Similar thing with this little river that flows through here. Also, it'll take a massive downpour for there to be water flowing through here, and then again, it will just kind of drain out of here and into a bigger river. It won't stand for very long. Yeah. It looks like these wildebeest are starting to settle into the shade there a little bit. Some of them in the shade, and some of them sitting in the sun. Quite a bizarre thing that we often see wildebeest doing, even on the hottest days. They often seem to stand right out in the sun. Just imagine with that dark coat, how hot they must be getting. I think for now, though, it's just that one that's being difficult, lying in the open patch of sand there, almost like it's sulking. refusing to listen to its mother and go and lie in the cool of the shade. There are, of course, antelope, especially living in more arid areas, like the Kalahari. You might see some of them at Tswalu. Things like Gemsbok or oryx. They have got a very special way of regulating the temperature of their blood, or the way of regulating the temperature of the blood flowing into their brain, to trick their brain into thinking that their body is actually cooler than what it is. And so that's why you often see them walking around even in the very hottest parts of the day. One of their desert adaptations. I'm not sure if wildebeest have the same. Of course, they are found in some relatively arid areas, parts of the Kalahari, dry parts of Botswana. It looks like there's a third species that's coming down to join this group of wildebeest and these giraffe. It looks like there's an impala ram that's on his way down to the water. He's looking very alertly off to the right, with his ears pricked forward. And now the giraffe also following his gaze and looking in that direction too. Now the giraffe just leaving. I did see a warthog running in that direction, so I think that might be what that impala was staring at. Just that sudden movement close to the water. Like we spoke earlier with that lioness and her cubs, and we were talking about how a water source can be a really good hunting spot for a predator, because all it has to do is wait for its prey to come to it. And that impala, well, this impala will know that, so he's being very cautious on his way down to the water. Making sure that there's nothing sinister lurking in the thickets. But a lovely scene. Lovely to see these wildebeest all together, and to see those two giraffe as well. And fantastic to get to watch that young giraffe drinking there. I think though it's getting really hot sitting out in the sun here, so Craig and I are going to keep on moving, and we're going to try maybe one or two more little mud wallows to see if there's any sign of a group of white rhinos.
So as Damon was saying, look at how this male lion is now moving also towards some shade. And this one white one is also in the shade. Now, we were so lucky, one of the other rangers rule, they were spending quite a bit of the morning tracking the rest of the pride. So that lioness we had with the small youngsters were heading down in this direction. So we decided to come and give them, or to come and join in the area, and hoping that that lioness with the youngsters would eventually come and join up. That's one of the bigger, more dominant males, and you've seen how big his belly was, so they've probably made a kill during the evening, because all of them are panting and they look like they might have full bellies. Even this young male here, look at his belly, how bulged it is, especially around his legs, the back legs. See how he's just looking towards that side. Now, there's not a lot of shade there. Give it a couple of minutes and then it'll probably be in the sun, and he'll get up from there and start moving to more denser shade. At least where he is now, there is a light breeze blowing. Now, to show you, the rest of the pride are lying down right here. Also panting quite heavily. It might be because of the heat, but also because they probably had something to eat as well. You can actually just hear this young white male breathing, like panting quite heavily. He decided to get up. He's like, no, it's a bit too warm here. Let me find some better shade. It's not going to be long before the others join. Oh, there's another lioness that just got up, and she's also going to be walking straight towards where that male went to. Probably she thought she's just sitting behind that bush, but won't be long and then she'll head off. And here's the other white female. She's also gotten up now and starting to move there. So maybe they think there is some thicker shade on that side. That's why everyone is moving. So it won't be too long before the others will also go and join. And then we can try and maneuver our way around. But let's give it some time as we see how many of them are going to move to that side. And I don't know if some of our viewers remember, like when she was separated from the pride for nearly a week and a half, a few months ago. And look at her now, like as soon as one moves, she'll move with, because she's too afraid like she might be left behind again. But I'm just glad that nothing happened to her and she's been able to get back to the pride. So another lioness had just gotten up and she's now moving across as well. But those lions might just go and find a nice patch of shade on that side. And probably all of them would eventually go and lie down there if there's enough space. And then from there we'll go around and see if we can get another glimpse of them.
Talking of looking for shade, we have the dogs, the exact ones that James had this morning. They've gone flat. It's no longer a busy sighting, so we thought we would pop in and say hello. James is up in Buffelshoek. And you can see they're all just panting heavily, full little bellies. And they'll all be seeking the shade. The Pungwe pack have really sort of made Juma their home recently. And we see them regularly. Lots of puppies. The last I heard there was 10. I'm not sure if it's still the same number. This is the first time I've seen them since coming back. Very skinny, slender bodies with long legs, which is a sign of their hunting strategy, coursing. Same as the Ethiopian wolf, same as hyenas, really. When hyenas hunt, they hunt by coursing. And they can't be too weighted down, so they don't feed in the same manner that leopards would or lions would, by eating everything as much as they can and going flat cat with a humongous belly. They will get full, but wild dogs have got to be able to run. By this evening, once the sun starts to go down, they've got to be able to run as fast as they can in order to hunt again. They're a hyper carnivore. There's different stages of being a carnivore. And wild dogs are hyper carnivores. So a carnivore is obviously an organism that eats meat. I am not a carnivore. I'm a herbivore. But carnivora is Latin, going back to our sort of topic of Latin names, and it basically means flesh devourer, which is not too pleasant, but that's what it translates to. And it's an order. Carnivore is an order of placental mammals, and it obviously includes the likes of your canids, which is your wolves and your dogs, and, well, your domestic dogs are included in that as well. Then your felids, your cats. It includes even the ursids, which is your bears, your mustelids, pinnipeds, which are your seals. So it basically consists of 12 families, and that's your order Carnivora. And you can get a hyper carnivore, like the dogs. You can get a Meso Carnivore, and you can get a hypo carnivore. And I'm sure you can all guess what they mean. But hyper carnivore is basically when the animal in question cannot really digest vegetation in any way, shape or form, and their diet is over 70% meat. That's a bit like Marcel, actually. He's a hypercarnivore. And the sort of obvious features of a hypercarnivore is a really heavy skull to host heavy set jaws, powerful jaws, because they need to, of course, pierce, suffocate prey, tear flesh and chew meat. It's not easy to chew meat. So along with powerful jaws come strong facial muscles. And normally they have a carnassial shear, which is your molars. It's your fourth molar on the upper jaw, your first on the lower, and they normally come together to create a slicing action. A specially evolved tool that gives carnivores the ability to slice through meat, and that's why you normally see any carnivore chewing on the side of the mouth, because that's where the carnassial shear lies. Now, a mesocarnivore is said to be any animal that depends on meat for at least 50% of their diet. So very balanced, right there in the middle. So along with meat, they will eat fruit, vegetables, and even fungi. This would be the likes of maybe foxes, raccoons, even coyotes, actually. Now, hypo carnivore is the carnivore that eats the least amount of meat, less than 30%. So normally you would probably use the word omnivore to cover that, because they'll also eat berries, nuts, roots, tubers, grass. They'll supplement and complement their diet. And that's the different levels of carnivores. Darren, I couldn't possibly answer that question in terms of degrees, but honestly, if I'm to be completely honest, I can't imagine it's that much cooler. Really, I don't actually know the temperature as it stands right now, but I mean, it was 28 this morning at 5:30. Maybe FC can help me out here. But it's just, you wake up and it's just hot. I don't think any of us in camp slept very well last night. We do not have that luxury that is called AC. We have a fan that blows hot air onto your already hot body. But going back to your question, I don't think it can be that much cooler. But obviously you're not in direct sunlight. And it's the only option the dogs have. 32 degrees Celsius, there you go. 32 degrees Celsius now. And it's only 8 o'clock in the morning. I think we're in store for another scorcher. But as I mentioned yesterday, all the animals out here that have lived in the lowveld their entire life are accustomed to seasonal fluctuations. The cold temperatures of winter and the extremely hot temperatures of summer. The bodies have mechanisms to A, warm up, and B, cool down. But I don't think you can get much relief. When the breeze comes through, it's very pleasant. But the dogs will continue to move, continue to seek shade. There's water nearby. We're very close to Chelapan, that I mentioned earlier. I can imagine they will just relish the cool temperatures at night time. I wish we could sleep with our doors open, but of course that's not an option here. I think I would wake up with Swazi on my bed. I'm sure he would come in and join me, good old Swazi. Sophia, you're 9 years old. It's lovely to hear from you. And what a fantastic question. You're asking, are wild dogs nocturnal? And no, they're not. They are completely diurnal, which is the opposite of nocturnal. It means they're active during the day. And when you talk about wild dogs, they're actually more crepuscular. And what that word means is they're very, very active at sunrise and then sunset. That's their sort of peak periods of activity. Then they rest during the day, as you can see. Then they'll get active again once the sun starts to go down. And then once it gets completely dark, they'll rest, they'll hide. All the predators out here, I like to think of it as a pizza. And each predator takes a slice, and it all fits into something that we call the predator hierarchy. They can't all be the same, or they wouldn't survive. If you had cheetahs, hyenas, wild dogs, and leopards all living like lions, all the same size as lions, same hunting strategy, and same social strategy in a pride, they could not survive. There would be far too much competition. So each predator has a unique specialization. Wild dog specialization is the pack life, and the fact that they are fast. They're obviously not as fast as cheetahs, but they can run. They're very light on their feet. They're not weighed down by heavy muscles and heavy bodies like lions are. The unique specialization of a cheetah is that it's diurnal, so it avoids the nocturnal predators. And they're very, very fast. They're the fastest land mammal. The unique specialization of leopards is the fact that they can just run up a tree. They're specially adapted to live in the tree. So it's like a big pizza, and each predator has a slice. So it fits into the bigger picture. They all fit together, but they have unique specializations. It's like Trivial Pursuit. I'm not sure if you'll know that game, Sophia. It's probably an old game that no one plays anymore, but everybody got a little piece of that pie. And that's how I like to describe the predator hierarchy. You see how it's digging? It's digging for cooler ground, just like what dogs do on the beach. The soil is covering the other one in mud. I think that's the alpha female with that little piece of her lip missing. So you see what she just did there? She used her claws that are not retractable to dig into the mud, find cooler soil and lie on it. That's another way to cool down. And when we think of carnivores, we have this unique way of only thinking of land mammals and thinking of lions and leopards, but actually the largest carnivore in the world is in fact the blue whale. So it includes the ocean as well, remember? So we're going to sit here, try and find some shade ourselves and sit with the dogs.
Yeah? That's impressive, eh?
That's main.
Sorry about that. I don't know where Davi and Mo have disappeared to. But you're back with us. And the dogs. And the noisy game drive radio. Yes. Oh, another one's digging. Look, same technique. Cooler ground. So the largest carnivore is a blue whale. Let's not forget our oceanic creatures. But the largest carnivore on land, of course, is a polar bear. Does anyone know the smallest carnivore? Actually, I should probably rephrase that. The smallest mammal carnivore. Yes, sorry, I take that back. Mammal carnivore is indeed the least weasel that is apparently 16 inches long. Which is just a little longer than a ruler. The smallest carnivore we get here, though, in the low veld, is the dwarf mongoose. Now, as some of you know, I spent a long time in Ethiopia this year. And Davi and I actually filmed and spent time with the Ethiopian wolf, which is also a canid, very closely related to the wild dogs. And over the continent of Africa, the Ethiopian wolf is the most endangered carnivore. It's the world's most endangered canid, and the wild dogs are second. So the populations of wild dogs are said to be increasing, and they're substantially higher than the Ethiopian wolf. The current sort of population estimate of the Ethiopian wolf is 450 adults. Yikes, that's not good. But for the wild dogs, it's higher. I think it's pushing about 2,000 now. There's lots of efforts going on, lots of rehabilitation programs, conservation programs for the dogs, but they're still said to be very, very low in numbers. I actually think it's higher than 2,000. Maybe I was referring to the adults there. I think possibly there could be about 4,000 now. But in the Serengeti, way back in early 2000s, I think 2003, canine distemper disease wiped out almost the entire population of dogs, and they were only left with 80. So they're still recovering. It's still magical to have them. So just as before, we are not going to go anywhere.
Alrighty guys, so finally we found this male. It seems like the females left him behind, but following the tracks we came across this beauty. And you know, he just spent a bit of time getting his mane right, you know, putting that straightener through to look extra pretty for us. But as you can see, just a stunning boy. I do think he's going to go flat soon. Either that or he might actually move to some shade. It is getting warm now. I can feel the sun is starting to burn my skin. So I think he's heating up quite a bit. So hopefully he's doing a bit of grooming again. Oh, but that is nice. He's enjoying that. It seems like he's noticing something on his right hand side, our left, quite a bit. There we go. Look at this. Look at this. Definitely smelling something as well, guys. See how he's pointing his nose in the air. I think he's picking up something. The wind is blowing straight from us to him. So yeah, I mean, we're just very happy to have found him this morning. They made us work, and you know, the job would not be so nice if they didn't make us work for it occasionally. Sometimes you come around the corner, poof, here's a lion on the road. And every now and again, you need to spend 2.5 hours tracking them before they spoil you with a sighting like that. We are going to go and have a look and see where he is heading. But yeah, very, very happy to be able to have shown you this. And yeah, hopefully he is moving in the direction that he was looking in the whole time. So hopefully he is moving to the females or a female or one of his brothers or so. So we're going to go and have a look, and whatever we find, we'll show you, okay? But for the meantime, we're going to send you somewhere else.
Craig and I have managed to find some white rhinos, everybody. And look at how dark they are. They're absolutely covered in mud. When we got here, they were rolling around in the mud and enjoying it, trying to cool off. Look at how the adults are all covered from head to toe. It's just their faces maybe that are still a little bit light. They haven't got mud. In comparison to the little calf, who looks like it was a lot more conservative with its mud wallowing. See how it's got that two-tone coloration to its body, very light back, and then the dark underbelly. Now, they were in the mud wallow, but a few moments ago, they all got a fright. They got spooked, and they all ran out of the mud, and they started to look off to the left, and they were very, very confused as to what had given them a fright. But now, if we just zoom out a little bit, you will be able to see down in this valley below us, there's a large group of beautiful kudu bulls that is moving through the thickets here. And that is, I think, or that's where the rhinos were looking when they got the fright. So I presume that is what gave them that fright and made them get up and run out of the mud wallow like that. Of course, a kudu is no threat to a rhino, but maybe they were just unsure as to what it was. Sure, there's a whole bunch of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So at least 6 kudu bulls down here in this little valley. And they're all heading into the thickets, into the shade, to shelter for the day. I want to keep their movements down to a minimum, allow the breeze to blow over their bodies, and stay in the shade, keep out the heat. How those rhinos now, standing very still, allowing that wet mud that's all over their bodies to get dried by the wind, helping to cool them down. And then once it is a little bit drier, they might go across just above where those 4 rhinos are standing. There's a tamboti thicket. It's not a very big tamboti thicket. There's only a couple of tumbuities, but they're all big tumbuities. And in that thicket, I can see at least another 3 or 4 white rhinos lying in the shade there. So I think that once the mud is dried and these rhinos start to feel the heat a little bit more, they'll maybe move into the shade there and perhaps go and rub themselves up against the tree trunks of those big tumbuities. And of course that dried mud will then help to act as a bit of an exfoliating agent to help them get rid of parasites, all those pesky ticks all over their bodies. And the kudu moving quite rapidly now. I think maybe just a bit of a stronger breeze have made them slightly uneasy. It is very thick bush that they're in down there, and although kudu with their coloration and their massive ears are well adapted to living in thick bush, I think with all the wind and all the noise that the rustling leaves are making, maybe got them a little bit on edge. See how often they stop and listen and look around? That one bull looking straight at us. Look at the bull second from the end. He's got immense horns. It's an absolutely magnificent kudu bull. The other one's quite a bit smaller, but there they go, rushing down into the little valley and still moving. It looks like the rhinos are thinking about starting to move as well. See how they've got, well, at least the one looked like it was quite keen to head off towards the shade. It also happens to be the one that has the least amount of mud on it, that one that's kind of in the middle now. Oh, never mind. It's just that it's been lying unevenly in the mud. It looks like it's been lying mainly on its left-hand side, and it's left a large portion of its right-hand side uncovered by mud. They're all now facing off to the left, and that's more or less where the wind is coming from. It's coming from over our backs from the north and from the northeast. And standing like that, presenting their full profile. So they're kind of side on towards the wind, helping to cool them down as all the moisture from the mud evaporates. I suppose, like for us, if we were to jump into a swimming pool or jump into a cold shower and then go and stand under the fan or stand in front of the air conditioning, that's how it would feel for us. Annie, you're asking how old rhinos normally get. Annie, for these white rhinos, they could live to be over 40 years old if they're very lucky. Of course, it will depend on environmental conditions and depend on their own health. But yeah, normally around 40 years is a good age for a rhino to live to. I suppose also the wear on their teeth. We spoke a bit about rhino teeth yesterday, how they got those big molar teeth in their mouth and lots of big molar teeth for grinding up grass. And in areas where there's lots of lush, soft grass, good nutrition, might be able to live longer. But in areas where the grass is maybe not as nutritious, maybe a bit coarser, might have a bit more wear, a bit more impact on their teeth, and therefore shorten their lifespan, I suppose, a little bit. Might lose condition earlier on. A couple of months ago, you may remember, with Jared, we saw a very old black rhino bull that was on his last legs. And we estimated him to be in his late 30s, or at least our conservation team estimated him to be in his late 30s. And shame, yeah, he was the territorial bull of that area. But when we found him, he was very, very, very weak looking and could barely stand up. You could see that he'd been quite badly beaten up by another black rhino bull. He had bruises all over his face. and kind of like bumps and gashes all over his body. And even on his back, he had claw marks along his back and along his rump, where we surmised that a pride of lions had found him and tried their luck. Very unusual for lions in this area to try and tackle a rhino, but I suppose a very old black rhino bull showing signs of weakness and age. What is that rhino doing? Look, he's scratching himself on one of the other rhinos. The rhino on the far right. Look at how he's kind of... He stopped now. He was rubbing his chin on the butt of the other rhino. And there's no rubbing. Look, he's going to start again. Look, he's rocking backwards and forwards. So that's exactly what they'll do on a tree stump or a log or a rock. Is they'll go and stand alongside it and they'll kind of rock backwards and forwards and scratch, often kind of under their chins, under their necks, on the insides of their legs, all the soft parts of their body where there'll be more likely to be concentrations of ticks that are there trying to get the blood to feed on. But in the absence of logs and rocks, another rhino will just have to do.
We have got here the most irritating hornbill on planet Earth. Every time we get it in sight, it disappears. And then it stands still, and then we get it on camera, and then it moves again. Anyway, there it is. A ground hornbill, looking for things to eat. Let me just sneak a little bit forward and try and get another view of it. Just also looking up into this tree because there was a sort of cracking sound. It sounded like jaws clamping over bone, but I think it was very unlikely, given that we can't see anything with the jaws or bones. Right, where's our hornbill? No, oh, there it is. It's just in the shade there.
So we just maneuvered our way around to see if we can have another glimpse of the pride. And you can see this one male like just sitting under the shade now, and you can see how he's just panting, but look at the size of those teeth. He's picked such a nice area because he's in the shade and there's a nice breeze blowing through. Look at the grass and everything moving around him. But also he had quite a big meal last night, so his belly is full, pretty much uncomfortable. Let's just see if he's gonna roll around. Do you notice at the very front of on his lower lip, you'll notice there's like this black patch. Now that might have been, remember like this morning we were following that lioness with the small youngsters and they went and drank at that mud wallow. And so this is probably what happened with this male lion. In this area there's no big water hole, there's only a lot of puddles after the rain, so they probably went to drink at those puddles. And imagine now the bit of mud that's in there, and that's what's clammed onto his lower lip, into that hair on the chin. Now the other lions, just to show you in comparison to where he is not too far from where we are in the shade here. So there's the one male, and next to him an older female and the younger one lying down next to him. See how he's just staring at his brother, probably just hoping that he doesn't come closer to any of these females. But And the other ones, slightly more of where we are now, is just right here. All just in the shade. And this is where they'll probably spend the majority of the day. There's no need for them to go anywhere. It looks like they had, so some of the big male and some of the bigger females look like they had more of a meal. The little ones, they don't look too hungry, but look at how this one's tail is resting on this one's head, over across the neck. So it might be that young lioness, the white one that's lying at the back. So I can't see a mane on that one. Or it might even be the male, but we'll just have a look, because at this angle it's hard to tell. I just, from where I can see there, it's hard to tell. But yeah, we might just leave them for now and come and have a look at them later on this afternoon as it cools down.
So, okay guys, we left those of that male lion. He just moved under the shade of a big piece of shrub. I think it was didn't really pay attention, but I think it was maybe a shepherd's tree or a raisin bush or so, a smaller one. But have a look at how special this is. So these are Hartmann's mountain zebra. Have a look at the very clear definition that you have on those lines. Hey, much more, I want to say, perfect lines than what you'd find on a plains zebra. And also very distinctive of them, that brown on the bridge of their nose and then the white belly. But absolutely no shadow stripes, which I feel is impressive. I mean, looking at that, on camera you can't really see it, but with your own eyes, if you're looking at a distance, they almost start blurring those stripes in amongst the black and white. Perfect camouflage. Well, dazzling effect that they're forming. And they are looking to possibly come to the waterhole down here. So hopefully they'll trust us enough to do so. Either that, or they've already been to the water and they're just giving us no, I think they do want to come to the water, now that I see that one coming closer. But it would be quite special if we get to see them. So we've got both the plain zebra and the Hartmann's mountain zebra here on Tswalu. And typically speaking, wherever you have either Cape Mountain zebra or Hartmann's mountain zebra, and then plain zebra, the dynamics are a little difficult because the plain zebra gets slightly larger than the other two species. So typically speaking, you would find that when there's not enough mountainous areas around, they actually mix breed with one another. And with the plain zebra being slightly larger and a bit more powerful, you do find them then outbreeding the other species. In about 4 generations, you'll find that there's only plain zebra left in the reserve or in the area. However, over here, we've got enough mountains to allow the Hartmann's mountain zebra to go up the mountains and not really mix with the plain zebra. We do occasionally see them together when they come down to the water, and there's a group of plain zebra also there and so on. But they do their thing and then they go up back towards the mountainous areas or the rocky areas, which the plain zebra, again, doesn't really like. So very special to have both species around here and for them to be able to keep that gene pool separate and healthy for that matter. But I always love seeing these guys. They just, they're perfect. Those stripes are incredible. And I hope they come down to have a drink, because having their silhouette on this almost mirror-like water at the moment, there's just a slight breeze causing a bit of a ripple on the water, but not enough to, make the silhouettes blur. I mean, if you have a look at how that tree is reflecting, that would be great if they come down and we can see that as well. But as you can see, with them spending so much time in the mountain, not the most trusty of animals, you will find that quite often they take quite a bit of time, even though we are about, I want to say 200, maybe a little bit more meters away. Even though that is the case, they are going to take some time to warm up to us. And, it's a good thing. It's for animals to be too trusty. They'll get themselves into trouble, not with us, but with something like a lion or something like that. But yeah, guys, we're going to give it some time, see if they want to come closer. If they do, we're going to come show you. Otherwise, we'll go back to that lion and see if he's looking a bit more like a lazy lion.
Our dogs are still extremely flat, and I think this is them for the day. They may get up. The puppies are very restless. The puppies are to our other side. We don't have a very good view of them. And they don't look like puppies anymore, that's for sure. They may get some water, but until that sun goes down 4 or 5 o'clock, I don't think they'll move much. They'll keep moving with the shade, of course. They won't lie exposed in the sun. But going back to carnivores are generally said, sorry, that's my radio, to have a less complicated digestive system than herbivores, similar to us. We've got a simple-ish digestive system. We don't have multiple pockets in our stomach like ruminants do. That's quite a complicated digestive system, those that ruminate. And you will sort of read that generally carnivores are said to have larger brains than herbivores and therefore more intelligence. Now, I personally dispute this. I do think that just because an organism has a large brain, it does not necessarily mean high levels of intelligence. There's many, many indicators and factors involved in intelligence and animal cognition. Just because
Alrighty, guys, so as we said, they are taking a bit of time. You can see they're edging closer to the water slowly. You're going to go in. There's quite a bit of activity around the water's edge at the moment, little birds and so on, but they are slowly coming out from behind that tree and just, looking like they might want to come to the water. We are hoping for that very much. So it would be great. And with these guys, they spend most of their time feeding during the night. During the day you'll find them in the mountains just busy chilling and doing the, normal zebra things. They will be feeding a bit as well. But then you'll find them also now, this time of the morning, maybe a little earlier, coming to the water, having a drink, and then heading back up the mountains. So typical of them to see this behavior of coming down to the water now. I think they might have actually edged along the foot of the mountain to get to the water, and then they're going to go up this bigger area of mountain range to spend their day, possibly go over the edge of the crest just to get into the shade a little bit. See, now they're zigzagging a bit, keeping the brush between them and us as long as possible. But I feel like we're winning. Definitely coming closer, slowly. And having the water between us and them will also give them a sense of a buffer system, a little bit of a safety net to count on, which will cause them to trust us a little bit sooner rather than later. So I think that's probably the main objective of them zigzagging like that, rather keeping the water between us and them than the brush, where they know we've seen them. They've told us that they've seen us. So, quite often with the herbivores, you'll find them rather giving away their position, but letting the predator know that they're there. And then that lion or leopard or cheetah or whatever they might be seeing knows that they won't allow him to come any closer, or close enough to try and charge. So always a good idea to rather tell the danger, listen, I know you're here. Don't even try anything because I won't allow it. I'll keep moving away if you keep coming closer. Whereas if they know that they're there and they just keep quiet, that lion might think he's got a chance and still try and maybe get lucky, So, I heard a little bit of a snort now again, still just telling us that they are aware that we're sitting on the other side of the water. But very, very careful, eh? Have a look at how they're scanning the whole time and so on. Mostly looking at us because we're the main focus point at the moment, the largest funny thing that they've seen this morning around the waterhole. But still not neglecting that there might be something coming from a different direction. Oh, but they're beautiful. I love how they're edging closer one by one. It's like you go now, then I'll go, then I'll go. So yeah, it's pretty cool. Stunning morning. Hard work tracking lions, then we found it, and now these beauties. It's just great to be out here. There we go. Come, boy. And yeah, guys, it can be quite a process for them to get right to the water's edge. As soon as they break through where they are right now, they're coming out into the open properly. Then there's no more candlepot thickets or three thorns or raisin bushes which they can use to run from behind. So this next, I want to say, 40 meters for them to get from there where they are to the water is the critical part. So you'll see there's going to be a lot more caution being thrown into the mix than what it was when they still had some brush to be standing behind. Those ears of theirs also a little bit shorter and a tiny bit more round-like, round-looking than what you'd find with the plain zebra. So that's another thing that you can also look for. The obvious things, guys, are obviously the white belly. As soon as you see that, it's mountain zebra, whether it is Cape or Hartmann's. And then that brown on the bridge of the nose, also a typical giveaway. And then the lack of shadow stripes, but the ears to a certain extent over. This one in front is really thirsty. He's edging and edging and edging to go through. Probably a bit more inexperienced, or on the other side of the coin might be the stallion of the harem. So could be something like that as well, that he's like the first line of defense. But yeah, let's see what they do. We're going to stick with them for a little bit and see if they don't want to come to the water, then we'll show you guys.
We've just been having the most magical time with the dogs. They're all swimming and splashing and drinking and wallowing and I saw the puppy with the broken leg. It's a broken paw. It looks like the ankle joint, if you like. Something's wrong. Just very sad. But I'm just going to let you sit and enjoy this. Swimming puppies. Sorry, Mel, one more time. Your comm's broke in and out there. Beverly, I agree. Oh, it's been so magical. And how good must that feel, you know? Putting your body into a mud wallow like that. I would love to do that right now. I would look like a beached whale, but still, I would love to do that. And they're all heading back now. They're all slowly going to head back towards the adults. The puppies still look very young. They've grown up a lot, but they still look young. Now, we actually can't go anywhere right now. We've got a vehicle behind us. So we're going to have to just wait a little moment until the vehicle moves and we'll go back and see those wet, stinky dogs.
Here we are, finding some shade, but I have caught, catch is a strong term. This unfortunate cicada let go of me, hang on a sec, landed on the dashboard, and I thought I would capture him because I've spoken quite a lot about how they make their noise. Now, just inside there, I think that this is a female because it's not making any buzzing noises. Just beneath the legs, where my baby fingernail is, on the males, is the sound-producing apparatus. And it's basically a hollow within the abdomen, and that hollow has within it two membranes. And those membranes are like those old Coke bottle tops, or in fact the lid of the can of a Coke or any other kind of aluminium can. And when you press the top of it and then let it go, it makes a popping sound, right? Well, if you put a muscle, that's what this membrane's like, and it's got a muscle attached to the bottom of it, and it pulls down the membrane, it makes a popping noise, and then it lets the membrane go, and it makes a popping noise as it goes up again. And so it's got two of these, and it does that really, really quickly, and that's how a cicada makes its buzz. So it's not the legs, it's not stridulating like it is with something like a cricket or a grasshopper. And it's just below there. But you can't see it on this one because this one is a female, I think. Because normally when you catch them like this, they start to make squeaking noises. Right, shall we see if it flies away? All the best for you. Yes. All's well that ends well, as they say. No further luck, I'm afraid, with Batandia and a cub. They came into this area apparently earlier this morning after all the vehicles left them, but we haven't had any luck on that score, I'm afraid. It was quite cool though to find that little cicada.
Welcome back to Ambient Punda, and I think this is testament to just how hot it is at the moment. But look at these warthogs. They are all huddled up in the most perfect shade that's been cast by this thorn tree. It looks like it's a horned thorn. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 warthogs all in the shade of this tree. And they all look very, very comfortable, especially those younger warthogs. Look at that one that's lying on its side, lying flat with its with its tummy exposed to the wind. Shame, they're all now reshuffling. One of them wiggled. Oh, there's more. I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Sorry, 10 warthogs, not 9 warthogs. As soon as one shuffles or shifts itself around, then it's like a ripple effect. They all start moving. It's too cute, everybody. Don't you just love those little ones and their big whiskers? They look like big sideburns, like Charles Darwin sideburns, if you will. Shame, but look at how heavily they're panting, especially that female on the far right. Look at how that tummy is heaving up and down. And her tummy is looking super, super big, super full. And there's no way that she could have eaten that much to make her tummy that big. She looks like she's pregnant. I think maybe even all 3 of these sows, actually looking at them carefully, might be pregnant. Just like the impala and the wildebeest, they will be due to have their little piglets soon. In fact, listening to reports from neighbouring reserves close by to us, they've already started seeing little warthog piglets. We haven't seen any here just yet, but I'm sure it won't be too long before we do. But this is too cute. Look at that one that's got its chin on the other one's side there. And what this appears to be, it looks, like I said, 3 adult sows, and then no doubt their piglets from last year that are still with them. Can be quite sociable animals, can be warthogs. Warthogs can be quite sociable animals, should I say. And so look at these, even though these piglets are already probably about a year old, still with their mothers. But more than likely, when it comes time for their mums to go and have their new piglets, they'll have to go off on their own. They might go and join up with other young warthogs, or other adult warthogs, while their mothers spend time with their new offspring. Isn't that the cutest thing? Look at this warthog sow in the middle here, and her little piglet from last year is lying with his head against hers. Butterfly, you're saying pigs in a blanket. Butterfly, I think a blanket is the last thing that these warthogs want. They look very uncomfortable. Well, at least the sow on the far right looks rather uncomfortable. The heat is quite oppressive. I think the younger ones, though, they all look pretty okay. They seem to be coping with the heat a bit better. Obviously, smaller body size. They're not pregnant. And yeah, certainly that one that's in the middle there, it's got the right idea. It's got its tummy exposed to the wind. Shame, but look at how high the sun is already in the sky. Look at how the shadow of this tree is basically straight beneath the branches. The sun is, it's not even 9 o'clock, and the sun is really, really high in the sky. That shade is already diminishing in size. Shame, these poor warthogs are going to have to move in directly around the trunk of this tree. But they've been quite clever about it. See how they've tried to position themselves, I suppose, as close to that trunk as they can for now, so that they can rest for as long as possible before they do have to move. sleeping very, very soundly are those little piglets. Well, not so little piglets, they're yearlings. And even the sows, look how their eyes are all closed. Maybe taking comfort from the fact that it is so hot and that the odds of there being a big lioness prowling around here are maybe a bit lower than they would be at other times of the day. I think, yeah, it would have to be a very desperate lioness to be moving around while it's so hot like this. But that's really special to get to see, everybody, to see all these little warthogs lying like this. And I don't think they're going to move too far anytime soon. I think once it gets too hot, they'll maybe shift back towards the tree trunk, or maybe go and try and find some more shade. But I think Craig and I are going to leave them, and we're going to go try and find some shade of our own.
Well, I'm glad all the animals are enjoying the shade. All the dogs have the shade here. Niels and I, not so much, but it's worth it. It's so good to see the Pungwe pack again. It really is. The puppies can't sit still, though. They're off on some other mission. I don't know where they've gone, but puppies be puppies. Now, although carnivores get a bad rep out here, they're always killing machines. They sit right at the top of the trophic level. They keep all other animals in check. They keep all herbivore populations in check and balance. They normally weasel out and pick off the weak and the old. Not always, of course. But if an entire carnivore population was wiped out by disease, just like canine distemper and rabies, just like what happened to the Ethiopian wolf and wild dogs, then what will happen is that you can experience a complete overpopulation of many organisms lower in the food chain, and completely upsets the balance. Everything in nature strives for balance. Wipe out the top level carnivores, you're going to experience a lot of problems as you go down the sort of food chain, like a domino effect. And wolves were actually just a perfect example. Wolves were actually reintroduced back to Yellowstone. I'm sure it was around 1995. Forgive me if I'm a few years off. Because they had been completely eradicated about 70 years earlier. Because they thought they were killing all the elk. Yes, they were killing the elk because they're predators. But once you eradicate them, the elk populations went out of control, which then had a knock-on effect on everything else and destroyed the ecosystem, especially woody plants and vegetation. So they reintroduced the wolves back to Yellowstone in order to control the elk once again, to help the ecosystem recover, the woody plants recover, the vegetation recover, and restore balance. And that really is one of the perfect examples to show you the role of a carnivore in any ecosystem. Now, of course, if the carnivore populations went out of control, then again, you would be in trouble. It would have the complete opposite effect. But animals like these dogs here are completely necessary. So we're going to bumble back for breakfast now and let these dogs enjoy their day in the shade.
So guys, we had them come right up to the bank of the dam wall. And they got a fright for a bird flying up from the water's edge and ran back to where they are standing currently. And from there, they've just zigzagged up and down along that line. But yeah, just really interesting to see how careful they are, and you know, what a treat to be able to see these animals. Like I've mentioned earlier, they spend most of their day in the rocky areas, so we don't often get to spend such quality time with them, and that's just, you know, like a breath of fresh air to be able to do that. So I do think they are going to come down eventually to the water, but that bird just broke the trust a little bit. was a Cape turtle dove. And I think he wasn't expecting them looking over the dam wall, and they weren't expecting him at the water's edge. So what I do think we'll do is we'll let them, do their thing in peace, and rather leave them, see if they don't want to come through. Then I do think they might, just before it warms up too much. But it's unfortunately that time of the day where we are going to have to say we'll see you this afternoon again. So it's been wonderful having you a part of this live drive, and we're hoping to see you back here this afternoon, see what the bush has to offer. And remember to tune in on channel 183 on DSTV, or you can follow us on YouTube or Twitter. Send through all of your interesting questions and we'll answer them to the best of our ability using the hashtag WildEarth to send that through. Or you can also send it to our website via wildearth.tv. So you can do that as well. But yeah, guys, I think for the meantime, we're going to love and leave these Hartmann's Mountain zebra. Let them come and drink in peace. It's been a treat seeing them. And we hope to see all of you back here this afternoon so that we can share our new live safari with you. Alrighty, guys. See you this afternoon. Bye-bye.